Chapter 281, Crimson Flame Lotus Seed Silence. The entire environment was devoid of sound. Jiyu Mu's face paled. He saw the speed his senior granduncle displayed, and if the other party were to use this speed against him, he probably won't even last for a breath. That is to say, killing him is indeed not any harder than slaughtering a chicken. Upon recalling the fact that he had tried to get violent with such an expert, cold sweat drenched his back immediately. It was fortunate that the other party had recognized him, and that there was a form of kinship between them. Otherwise, even though he was an envoy of the headquarter, he would definitely have been reduced to a corpse in an instant. The other party was an expert of an entirely different level, and given he didn't attempt to retaliate when Jiyu Mu provoked him earlier on, why would he need to fool him just to take his life? Rather, that would just sully his status. Senior granduncle, I was too skeptical, please forgive me. Upon understanding this fact, Jiyu Mu bowed in apology. If killing him was as easy as killing a chicken, there should be no need for the senior granduncle to play mind games with him if he really wished to slaughter him. I was traveling around the world when I passed by Red Lotus City and noticed that the great Herb King was afflicted with the contract Jiyu. Thus, I saved him, and from him, I heard about the conflict over the seat of the Hall Master in the Poison Hall branch. Unable to bear the sight of the younger generation of Poison Masters killing one another over such a minor matter, I came here with the intention of resolving the conflict. Staring at the skies, benevolence shone through Xianxia's eyes. This. Upon hearing that the other party came here for such a reason, Liao Zun and the others felt embarrassed. To think that they had believed that he was a fraud hankering for some treasure. Such thoughts appear ludicrous now that they recalled about it. No wonder he spoke of conducting an examination the moment he arrived and declared that the most outstanding Poison Master would become the Hall Master. Through such, they would be able to avoid unnecessary conflict and trouble. Jiyu Mu came to a realization as well. He had been thinking why his senior granduncle, despite his position, would choose to impersonate as the envoy. In the end, it was because he was unwilling to see fellow Poison Masters killing one another. Upon realizing this fact, Jiyu Mu couldn't help but be impressed with the other party. Probably, only a true Poison Master, one who had an intense love for this occupation, would be able to possess such magnanimity. All right, since the real envoy is here, it's meaningless for me to remain here. Thus, I'll be taking my leave. Shaking his head, Xianxia turned around and walked out of the Poison Hall. The reason why the others took in his words so easily was that they were still awed by the Heaven's Path movement art. As time went by, they would realize the many loopholes in his words. However, Xianxia's motive here was to browse through the books. Now that he had accomplished his primary aim, and that the real envoy had arrived, remaining here would do nothing but increase the chances of his disguise being seen through. In that case, he might as well leave immediately. After leaving the perimeter of the poison mist, he would be able to summon the howling firmament beast and leave this place for good. Senior granduncle, please save me. Seeing the other party turn around to leave without talking about his illness, Jiyu Mu's complexion turned pale. He knew that his doubt had offended the other party, so he hurried forward and kneeled to the floor. All experts had their own dignity. From the moment he arrived, Jiyu Mu has been antagonizing him, even making a move against him. Furthermore, when the other party offered to help him out of goodwill, he refused to believe him and doubted his intentions. It was no wonder why the other party was displeased. His temper could already be considered good for not teaching Jiyu Mu a lesson there and then. I require my patients to be unconscious when treating them. I understand that you're worried about your safety, and I don't blame you for not believing me. Xianxia shook his head. The other party was clearly angry from his tone, and he didn't seem to intend to help him. Thus, Jiyu Mu hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and sending a telepathic message. Senior granduncle, wait a moment. It was merely a pretense that the headquarters sent me to nominate a new Hall Master and stabilize the situation in the branch. The truth is that the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed in this branch has matured. Crimson Flame Lotus Seed. That's right. The Crimson Flame Lotus Seed lives in the depths of the volcano, and it absorbs the strength of the earth veins for its growth. If a cultivator were to consume it, their chances of breaking through the Xizuan realm bottleneck to reach higher realms would be increased by 20. It is precisely because I'm stuck at this bottleneck that I took the initiative to apply for this mission. Ji Mu spoke of everything without withholding any information. I know that given Senior Granduncle's strength, this object is useless to you. Even so, it would be beneficial to your disciples and students if they were to consume it. It can increase the chances of breaking through Zhizuan by 20. Xianxia was astonished. A breakthrough in cultivation depended on one's will, faith, accumulation, and cultivation technique. Pills are considered as supplements, and most medicinal herbs weren't very effective for helping to raise one's cultivation. Yet, the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed increased the chances of breaking through the Zhizuan realm by a full 20. If Xianxia didn't hear this news from a Zhizuan realm expert himself, he wouldn't dare to believe it to be true. Even though the 20th of May not seem to be much, such effectiveness was already considered to be amazing by cultivators. Many would kill to lay their hands on the seed. Zhizuan realm was the pinnacle of being a fighter, but it wasn't the terminal point of one's cultivation. In the vast world out there were countless experts who had surpassed the Zhizuan realm. A single Crimson Flame Lotus Seed can increase the possibility of one's breakthrough by a staggering 20, so it is definitely considered a priceless treasure. Xianxia didn't expect to find such a valuable object in this Poison Hall branch. All right, speak of your request. Knowing that the other party must have his motives for this matter, Xianxia turned to look at him. I only hope that Senior Granduncle can lend a helping hand to cure my physical trauma. As for the Lotus Seed, I only require one for my breakthrough, and I'll present the rest to Senior Granduncle. Ji Mu said. Ji Mu knew that given his current physical condition, even if he were to obtain the Lotus Seed, it would be impossible for him to reach higher realms. If that was the case, he might as well trade the seeds in return for treatment. Besides, even though the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed was good stuff, it wasn't that easily obtainable. Otherwise, the old Hall Master wouldn't have died so abruptly. Other people may not be aware of the cause of the death of the old Poison Hall, but Ji Mu was in the know. The branch had written and submitted a report on the old Hall Master's death, and Ji Mu happened to see its content by coincidence. The rumors outside claiming that he died due to an illness were false. Rather, it was because the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed had matured, and in the midst of picking it, the old Hall Master was burnt to ashes by the earth and flames. Given how even a Zhizuan expert was burnt to ashes by the flames, it was likely that Ji Mu would require the help of his Senior Granduncle to obtain that Lotus Seed. Thus, after some contemplation, he decided to inform the other party of this news and make a deal. Ji Mu knew that an expert of the other party's level wouldn't treat him poorly in consideration of the latter's status after knowing of the news. All right. Xianxia nodded. Xianxia had already intended to treat Ji Mu from the start, and now that there would be a reward, there was no reason for him to turn the other party down. So, when do we begin? Seeing the other party agree, Ji Mu was delighted. Are there any preparations that need to be done? There's no need for any preparations, we can start now. Xianxia waved his hands. The longer he dragged the matter, the likelier a twist would occur in the situation. It was best for Xianxia to get it over and done with. All right. Upon hearing that the other party would conduct the treatment now, Ji Mu was overjoyed. I'll be depending on Senior Granduncle then. After which, he raised his hands. Pada. Knocking himself on his head, his body went limp and fell to the floor. Ah! Seeing that the other party had knocked himself unconscious, Xianxia glanced downward to look at the bag of soul-numbing powder in his hands. Helpless, Xianxia could only place it back into his storage ring. I was intending to use this. To think that you would be even more reckless than the great Herb King. The soul-numbing powder, which can send a person unconscious, is extremely useful for his unique medical techniques. Thus, before setting off, he asked for plenty of it from the great Herb King. In any case, the object wasn't expensive, and the great Herb King was also willing to do Xianxia this favor. Thus, he gave him over 20 packets of it. He was intending to test the effects of the powder, but by the time he managed to take it out, the other party had already knocked himself out. That was way too fast. However, this was good as well. In any case, he was unconscious, and this spared Xianxia some effort. Stepping forward to the unconscious Ji Mu, Xianxia shook his hands and a few silver needles appeared in his palm. A detailed description of the other party's physical condition was formed when the other party made a move on him earlier, so there was no need for Xianxia to diagnose him once more. With a flick of his fingers, the silver needles flew toward Jiyu Mu's body. Xianxia's movements were light and nimble, as though a butterfly. Jiyu Mu's physical condition was largely different from that of the great Herb King. The latter had his foundations damaged by the contract Jiyu, resulting in his declining health, whereas the former used poison excessively to stimulate his acupoints so as to raise his cultivation, during which, the poison seeped into his body and began to destroy his physical functions. The former required the nourishment of the Heaven's Path Xianxia, whereas the latter merely required Xianxia to locate the area where the poison accumulated and use the Heaven's Path Xianxia to expel it from his body to solve the issue straightforwardly. In fact, the treatment for Jiyu Mu's condition was much easier than that of the great Herb King. TZZZZZZZ. The Heaven's Path Xianxia flowed through the silver needle toward the areas where the poison aura accumulated. Soon, the sound of flowing water could be heard from Jiyu Mu's body, and black water flowed out from his fingers and toes. Is this the poison aura hidden in his body? Is it being forced out just like that? Looking at the situation, Liao Zun and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. Coming into contact with poison on a daily basis, they understood the difficulty of expelling poison from one's body. Some poison aura, once seeped into the body, can never be removed regardless of the valuable herbs one consume or how long one tries. This was precisely the reason why, even though poison masters were fearsome existences, their lifespan tended to be extremely short. Reaching 50 to 60 years of age was already a huge achievement for them. Even though they didn't have any visible conditions, there were already numerous problems within their bodies. The poisons that they came into contact with were already slowly gnawing at them from within. They thought that there was no cure for them, but to think that the senior before them was able to resolve this trauma easily. If he is able to expel the potent poison contained in the envoy's body so easily, doesn't it mean that he can treat us with ease as well? Thus, they started staring at Xianxia with fiery eyes. Oblivious to the crowd's reaction, Xianxia was immersed in the matter at hand. Every single needle was pierced accurately at areas where the poison aura was hidden within his body. Before long, he shook his hands, and all of the silver needles flew back to him. Then, he swung his arms in a grand fashion. Jiyu Mu slowly roused into consciousness. This. Opening his eyes, Jiyu Mu detected the changes within his body immediately. Before, when his body was affected by the poison aura, he felt as though he was weighed down by gigantic shackles. Every single movement and action he made felt difficult. But now, as though all of the shackles were removed, his body felt as light as a feather. Even without checking his condition with his Xianxia, he knew that the other party had pulled him back from the gates of hell. Senior Granduncle, thank you for saving my life. Thus, he knelt to the floor once more. This time, it wasn't out of fear for the other party's strength, but in earnest respect for the other party's capability and assistance. Xianxia waved his hands casually. Your condition is more severe than I thought, and you will require 3 treatments before the problem can be completely solved. Thus, there's no need for you to be thankful to me. It's not too late to say such words after you are completely cured. Xianxia hadn't received the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed, and he wasn't out of danger either. Thus, Xianxia left himself a bargaining chip, choosing not to cure the other party in a single go, in case the other party reneged on his words. Chapter 282, Heaven's Path Poison Art. Yes. Jiyu Mu knew that his physical condition had already deteriorated to the worst possible state, so he thought it would take several months to treatment for the other party to alleviate his situation. Yet, contrary to his expectations, the other party said that 3 treatments were sufficient. Thus, he couldn't help but feel amazed by his senior granduncle once more. Your current condition shouldn't pose any problem to you in the short term, so I will arrange for the other 2 treatments at a later date. Also, I'll leave the matter regarding the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed up to you. After all, you're the envoy, so I will stay out of this matter. The carrot and stick each has to be employed at the right moments for it to be useful. Knowing that Jiyu Mu was completely impressed by him, Xianxia wasn't worried about being attacked by him again. Thus, as he spoke, he walked up and sat at the centermost position in the hall. Ji Mu nodded before turning to Liao Zun and the others. Other than the Vice Hall Masters and the Elders, the rest of you can leave now. Yes. No one dared to disobey the words of the envoy. Soon, only the 4 Elders and the 3 Vice Hall Masters remained in the room. I'm here for 2 matters. Flinging his sleeves, Ji Mu scanned the surroundings. Even though he behaved as an obedient junior before Xianxia, acting cautiously and subserviently, it was a fact that he was still a Zhizuan Realm Pinnacle expert and a 3-star Pinnacle Poison Master. Destroying this branch didn't mean anything at all to him. His absolute strength granted him unparalleled authority, and no one dared to talk back to him. Envoy, please speak. Liao Zun and the others quickly bowed. Firstly, I will choose the new Hall Master. Secondly, I am here to pick the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed, which should have matured by now. Ji Mu said. Crimson Flame Lotus Seed. Liao Zun and the others shuddered, their faces turning pale at the same time. Crimson Flame Lotus lives in the regions where the earth flames burn, and it feeds on lethal poison to nourish itself. Both the flower and the leaves contain lethal poison, and they are ideal ingredients to concocting poison. However, despite the lethal poison on the other parts of the lotus and its surroundings, its seeds remain untainted. On the contrary, it is an unparalleled treasure for cultivators trying to surpass Zhizuan realm. The reason why the Red Lotus branch was established several thousand of years ago at this spot was to monopolize this lotus. With an authoritative tone, Ji Mu spoke. Now that the lotus seed has matured, I'll take the seeds and leave the flower and leaves to you. I presume that you have no problems with this, right? There's no problem. Liao Zun and the others smiled bitterly as they nodded. The envoy had already spoken, and the senior granduncle was observing beside. Even if they had a problem with his words, they wouldn't dare to voice it out. That's good. How much longer will it take before the lotus seeds mature? Seeing the lack of opposition to the matter, Ji Mu nodded his head in satisfaction before asking. He chose this period of time to come after having estimated the maturing of the lotus seed, but the specific date that it would fully mature eluded him. Reporting to the envoy, there's still 10 days to its maturity. Liao Zun replied. 10 days? Good. Prepare the best room in the poison hall for my senior granduncle. In this 10 days, I will pick out the new hall master. Ji Mu said. Yes. Everyone nodded in response to the envoy's instructions. Knowing that it would take 10 days before the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed mature, Xianxia decided to make use of this time to digest the information which he had just absorbed to analyze the poison aura within his body. In any case, since he hadn't yet cured the other party completely, so even if Ji Mu were to realize a lapse in his statements and conclude that this senior granduncle of his was a fake, it was unlikely he would do anything to him. Besides, he had displayed numerous incredible feats which even 5-star poison masters were incapable of. Most probably, he wouldn't dare to pick a fight with him either. Ignoring the issue of selecting the new hall master, Xianxia sat quietly in his room after instructing the Great Herb King and Butler Lu to guard his door. He was analyzing the books which he had gathered, and his mind operated at maximum efficiency. Correct. Muttering under his breath, the countless books on poison on the shelves merged into one and formed a thick secret manual. Knowing that this was the Heaven's Path poison art that he wanted to compile, he grabbed it lightly and started browsing through it without hesitation. Poison is a type of medicine. It can kill, and can also save lives. Written on the first page of the book was an introduction to poisons. This Heaven's Path poison art manual formed with the books on poison here was clearly much more advanced, detailed, and profound than the one formed with the books in Xianxia Kingdom. Xianxia's understanding of poisons deepened with each page he read. After an unknown period of time, Xianxia's eyes suddenly opened. The confusion which could be seen in his eyes before was replaced with clarity. To think that the study of poison is so vast and profound as well. Recalling the content he has just learned moments ago, Xianxia felt amazed. It was no wonder why poison masters were the subjects of fear for countless people. In terms of the complexity, it wasn't inferior to apothecary, blacksmiths, and the other upper 9 paths occupations. In terms of offensive ability, it might even exceed them. For example, with Xianxia's current cultivation, he would definitely be unable to match a Xianxia realm intermediate stage cultivator. However, if he were to utilize poison, he could easily kill a Xianxia realm pinnacle expert. Or perhaps, even a Zhizuan realm expert. Of course, poison wasn't omnipotent either. Without a sufficiently high cultivation, one would be unable to conceal the killing intent within them, and their attempt at poisoning the other party would be easily detected. If so, they would probably be killed before they could even do anything. Furthermore, there were some formidable poisons which required a poison master to use his blood essence and Xianxia to trigger its effects. Even if a person who wasn't a poison master or didn't possess sufficiently high cultivation were to be given a potent poison, he would be unable to utilize it. On the contrary, he might even be killed by it instead. It is just like how everyone knows about the might of the atomic bomb, but without sufficient knowledge and strength, it is impossible to control. Even if you were given one, you wouldn't be able to threaten anyone with it. On the other hand, you might even put yourself in danger by wielding it. Potent poison is just like a powerful weapon. Without sufficient strength and mastery, putting aside coming into contact with them, even if one was several hundred meters, or even several thousand meters away, it was possible for him to be poisoned to death by it. It is an incomparably dangerous tool. Initially, Xianxia thought that if he formulated a potent poison, he wouldn't have to fear even Zhizuan realm pinnacle experts. But from the looks of it, he had been overthinking. While I don't intend to harm anyone through poison, I can avoid being harmed by others with this knowledge. The strength that a poison master could potentially wield alarmed Xianxia. While he didn't intend to kill anyone with poison, he had to be careful to not allow anyone to obtain a chance of poisoning him. It was just like the poison aura in Xianxia's body. If he had been guarded against all poison masters beforehand, he wouldn't have landed himself in such a difficult situation. According to the manual, the highest level that a poison master can attain is to create the poison body. It is entirely possible for me to cultivate it. Xianxia smiled. Just like any other occupation, being a poison master is heavily reliant on talent. Talented poison masters would possess innate poison body. Not only does the innate poison body grant one incredible sensitivity to poison, it would also give them extraordinary resistance toward it. That is to say, if a poison master possesses this constitution, even if he were to consume the poison concocted by other poison masters, he wouldn't suffer any effects or damage, as though eating an ordinary meal. Even more so, rumors have it that a person with such a constitution can absorb the energy contained within the poison they consume in order to raise their cultivation. Of course, this constitution is incredibly rare. Even within billions of poison masters, there might not even be a single one. Similar to Zhao Yue's pure yin body, one had to be born with this constitution to possess it, so it was impossible for Xianxia to cultivate the innate poison body. However, the countless secret arts that poison masters cultivate contained in the books of the Poison Hall had formed a corresponding cultivation technique alongside the Heaven's Path poison art. And if he were to cultivate according to the cultivation technique, even if he is unable to reach the level of the innate poison body, he would be able to significantly increase his physical immunity to poison. This was much more efficient than the special techniques poison masters utilize to temper their physique to make it more resilient toward poison. I should give it a try. Without any hesitation, Xianxia willed for the book on the cultivation technique to appear and started browsing through it. After an unknown period of time, he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and stood up all of a sudden. Jeji! 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 The bones throughout his body crackled as though fried beans, and his aura evolved in an instant. Even though it pales in comparison to innate poison body, it grants me immunity toward ordinary poisons. In my current state, consuming poisons formulated by a 3-star poison master wouldn't hurt me in any way. Sensing the changes in his body, Xianxia smiled. There was an obvious change in his body after cultivating the Heaven's Path poison art, and his immunity toward poison had increased. Even though it wasn't the innate poison body, he had achieved perfect immunity to poisons concocted by 3-star poison masters and below. More importantly, after cultivating the Heaven's Path poison art, on top of curing people and inducing a breakthrough in their cultivation, my Heaven's Path Xianxia can also be turned into lethal poison with a single thought, killing an enemy instantaneously. Rather than his physical body, the greatest change from cultivating the Heaven's Path poison art was actually his Xianxia. The purity of the Heaven's Path Xianxia made it an unparalleled tool in healing injuries, rejuvenating one's stamina, augmenting one's life force, and inducing a breakthrough in cultivation. And after cultivating the Heaven's Path poison art, Xianxia was now capable of converting the Heaven's Path Xianxia into a lethal aura that was impossible to withstand. Once it seeps into one's veins, even a Zhizuan realm expert would be unable to neutralize it. As clear as spring water, it was capable of diving into any holes or acupoints within the human body. Even if one were to know where it was, without sufficiently pure Xianxia, it would be impossible to expel. This was no different from terminal stage cancer. Even if one knew the cause and solution to the problem, it was impossible to treat. As expected of the Heaven's Path Xianxia, life and death hinged on just a single thought. Xianxia didn't know that it could wield such an incredible power. Now that I'm done cultivating the poison body, I should check on the poison aura. Having finished cultivating the poison body, Xianxia exhaled deeply. He turned his attention once more to the poison aura hidden in the depths of his body. In the past, he understood very little about poison, and thus, he was unable to ascertain what the poison hiding in his body was. Now that his knowledge was comparable to a 3-star poison master, such that Jiu Mu might not even be a match for him, he finally possessed the capability to look into the origin of the poison aura and find a way to expel it. Upon entering the state of heart of tranquil water, Xianxia's mind began clocking at a rapid speed. This poison aura can hide within my bloodstream and escape the pursuit of my Heaven's Path Xianxia. As he examined the poison aura hidden in his body, books after books of poison appeared before his eyes, and countless knowledge flooded his mind. There was more than 1 million types of poison in the world, and every single one of them had a different concoction and cure. Even the slightest mistake could cause a huge difference in the result. Thus, Xianxia didn't panic. He took his time and sieved through the countless books in the library slowly. Green spirit poison, that's not it. Phantom shadow toxic, that's not right either. Clear snake venom, that doesn't seem like it. Xianxia compared the poison based on its color and traits to those listed in the books one by one. After a period of time, Xianxia suddenly halted. His face paled, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. To think that it would be this. How? How is this possible? Clarifications. A Heaven's Path cultivation technique is formed along with the Heaven's Path poison art. While the book is called Heaven's Path poison art, the cultivation technique is also called Heaven's Path poison art. Cultivating Heaven's Path poison art will grant you the poison body. Chapter 283, Lava Beast 2 in 1. This is the innate fetal poison. It's a type of innate poison. Upon identifying the poison, Xianxia felt as if he could go insane. Innate fetus poison is a poison that affects a fetus in its mother's womb. The poison melds with one's blood and soul, making it impossible to cure. Zhao Yue possessed the innate pure yin body and, after awakening her unique constitution, gained overwhelming strength and incredible beauty befitting of a queen. On the other hand, Yuan Dao possessed the innate emperor bloodline and, after its awakening, gained an invincible defense, becoming a human-shaped meat shield. Xianxia had always been envious of them, and now, he realized that he possessed an innate constitution as well. Just that. These are all innate constitutions. But why the huge difference? Other people's innate constitution allow their cultivation to soar, but his innate constitution was instead threatening to claim his life. Innate fetal poison is a unique poison that is planted into the body of a pregnant mother. It fuses with the fetus within her before it is born and causes an innate lack of fetal vitality. Those who have been inflicted with this poison rarely live beyond 30, and this constitution is also termed as the constitution of premature death, and there is no cure for it. Xianxia was on the verge of tears. Other people possess overpowered innate physical constitution, while I possess the innate constitution of premature death. Premature death, your head. Is it even possible to pull an even bigger prank on me? If I won't live beyond 30, doesn't that mean that I only have a decade more to live? My days are numbered. Suppressing his dismay, he searched through the books in the library of Heaven's Path and found 7 to 8 other books with descriptions on innate fetal poison. But these descriptions tallied with the poison aura hidden in his body. That meant that without a doubt, Xianxia was inflicted with this poison. Just that. To be capable of planting the poison in the mother and have her pass it to her offspring without being noticed, the one who planted the poison must be at minimum a 7-star poison master. But I am only an orphan, there shouldn't be any need to go through so much trouble. After confirming the poison in his body, Xianxia brooded for a moment before doubts started appearing in his mind. Having read so many books on poison in the poison hall, Xianxia had gained an in-depth understanding of the usage of poison. For one to plant an innate fetal poison into a person without being noticed, the poison master must be above 7-star. He would be either an 8-star or even a 9-star poison master. A poison master of this level already possesses unparalleled cultivation. Why would he waste so much effort just to deal with an orphan like him? His previous self was just an insignificant figure living in a backward place like Xianxia Kingdom. Being an orphan, he was so poor that he did not have a single cent in belonging. Nothing about him was exceptional, except for his cultivation before he reached 18. But after that, he fell behind and even earned a reputation as the worst teacher in the entire history of Hongqian Academy. How can a figure like him be worthy of the attention of a poison master standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid? Isn't this inconceivable? This poison fuses with one's body, and under normal circumstances, one wouldn't notice it until his death. It is due to the heaven's path Xianxia that I cultivated being too pure that it was forced to reveal its presence. Even so, there's no way for me to treat it. Xianxia felt helpless. The first time he noticed this poison, he thought that someone had planned to murder him, and his previous self was killed by that person. But from the looks of it now, he had been overthinking. This poison had accompanied him from birth, and it was hidden so deeply that even a 9-star poison master wouldn't be able to notice it. Without a doubt, this would have been a perfect murder. Even if Xianxia were to die, it would be impossible for anyone to pinpoint the murderer. In fact, even if Xianxia were a poison master, it would have been almost impossible for him to notice the poison aura. However, the heaven's path Xianxia that he cultivated was simply too pure. Flowing through his meridians and blood, no impurity was able to remain hidden. As such, it was forced out of its hiding. Even so, Xianxia could do nothing about it. Nourished during the pregnancy of its former host, it had already gained intelligence such that even the heaven's path Xianxia was incapable of expelling it. Furthermore, it would grow more and more potent with the passing of time, and Xianxia would surely die before reaching the age of 30. The heck? What in the world is this? Other people are blessed with golden fingers which allow them to reign supreme in their worlds, but he was given a time bomb instead. Furthermore, it was the type that straps tightly to you, in order to ensure your death. It was likely that this poison had played a part in the death of his previous self. Under uncontrollable depression and a strong will to end his life, the poison aura acted up prematurely, claiming his soul. However, Xianxia's transcension occurred before the poison aura could corrode the body fully. Xianxia's sudden fall as a genius, due to his cultivation stagnating, was also related to this poison aura. Before reaching Xianxia realm pinnacle, his previous self advanced swiftly in his cultivation, and he was reputed as a genius that appeared only once every 100 years. However, he ended up being stopped before the gates of Pigu realm for countless years. The reason for this was that the poison aura fused with his entire body, and this severely suppressed the might of his once murky Xianxia. Unless one achieved the level of purity of heaven's path Xianxia, it was impossible for him to overcome the suppression of the poison aura and reach higher realms. Given the murky Xianxia that one could only cultivate practicing the inferior cultivation techniques in Xianxia Kingdom, there was no way his previous self could have reached Pigu realm. All poisons must have a cure. However, the tier of this poison hall is too low. Maybe I would be able to find a solution within the books at a higher tier branch. Even though Xianxia felt dismal at his condition, he wasn't ready to give up. After comprehending the Heaven's Path poison art, Xianxia had gained an extensive understanding of poison. Every cause is linked to an effect, and similarly, there isn't such a thing as an incurable disease in the world. Even though the books Xianxia compiled in the Library of Heaven's Path stated that there wasn't a solution to the poison, that didn't mean that it was truly incurable. He could perhaps find a remedy in another higher tier poison hall. This innate fetal poison will not act up before I reach 30. That is to say, I have to find a remedy within the next 10 years. As though a dagger, The heart of tranquil water state sliced away all negative thoughts from Xianxia's mind. Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief. He had transcended for barely more than a month, and he had already reached half Xianxia up from Xianxia realm pinnacle. It was hard to imagine what heights he would reach in the next 10 years, and by then, he might have already found a cure. There was no need for him to panic. But the matter nevertheless weighed down on him heavily, exerting a constant stress on him. Often, what happens in practice do not obey logical theories. It took Xianxia great luck to live once more, and he didn't want to die for such an absurd reason. Summon Jiu Mu. Standing up, Xianxia instructed the great herb king and butler Lu, who were guarding the entrance to his room. Senior granduncle, did you call me? Not too long after, Jiu Mu walked into the room. Sit. Xianxia gestured. The reason why I had you come over is that I have something I would like to ask you. Jiu Mu sat upright immediately. Senior granduncle, please speak. In the last few days, Xianxia had taken out some time to conduct a second treatment for the person before him. After which, the latter felt rejuvenated, and he felt as though he had returned back to the time 10 years ago when his stamina was at his peak. Endless energy seemed to gush through him. After 2 treatments, he knew that this senior granduncle before him possessed heavenly means. He had long been fully impressed by the latter, and he didn't dare to hold any doubts or vile thoughts toward him. Have you heard of the innate fetal poison? Xianxia asked. Jiu Mu came from Shenyuan Kingdom Poison Hall branch, and he had read through profound secret manuals. It was possible that he might know something that Xianxia didn't. Innate fetal poison. Jiu Mu hesitated for a moment before answering, I've heard of this poison. It is a lethal poison which is implanted into the womb of a woman, and the poison fuses itself with the fetus along with its growth. There's no cure for the poison. No cure. Yes. Jiu Mu nodded. However, he suddenly thought of something, and hesitation flickered on his face. But what? Xianxia stared at him intently. I've heard a rumor, but I can't ascertain its authenticity. After hesitating for a moment longer, Jiu Mu said, it is said that the greatest man in history, Emperor Kong Shi, was afflicted with innate fetal poison. No one knew how he resolved it, but he lived to 10,000 years old and passed away from old age. Emperor Kong Shi was known as the #1 master teacher in the world, the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion. He was revered by countless people in the world, and there wasn't a single master teacher or master teacher apprentice who didn't know of him. Oh! Xianxia had once heard Huang Yu spoke of him, and he felt immense respect for the legendary figure as well. However, he didn't expect that senior to be afflicted with the innate fetal poison as well, to have been in a similar predicament as him. However, since he managed to overcome it, it meant that there was a cure for the poison. However, this is only a legend spread among the civilians. If one wants to know about the matters surrounding Kong Shi, one would probably have to pay a visit to the Master Teacher Pavilion as a master teacher. Poison masters like us only know a thing or two about him from the rumors. But why would senior granduncle ask about this? Jiu Mu asked doubtfully. I'm just casually asking about it. Xianxia waved his hands casually. At this moment, Xianxia decided to pay a visit to the Master Teacher Pavilion right after he settled the things here. An autobiography would be compiled on the life of outstanding figures in each occupation and kept in their respective guilds so that the later generations can learn from their example. Since Kong Shi was the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was likely that his records were in the Master Teacher Pavilion. If he was truly afflicted with innate fetal poison and if he eventually lived to the end of his full lifespan, it would mean that he had managed to resolve the poison. If there was a precedent of success, Xianxia would need not panic that much. What's the situation in the poison hall? Having a plan in mind, Xianxia decided not to linger on this topic. After several rounds of examinations, I have already decided on the new hall master. He is the vice hall master Liao Zun. Also, the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed is nearing maturity and we can pick it tomorrow. Jiu Mu replied. Tomorrow? Great. Xianxia's eyes lit up. He had obtained the knowledge he required and had also identified the poison he was suffering from. As such, there was no further need for him to remain here, and it was best for him to leave as soon as possible. After Jiyu Mu exited the room, Xianxia continued to look through the books in the Library of Heaven's Path to augment his knowledge, and he took time to reinforce his cultivation as well. Even though there weren't sufficient Xianxia realm cultivation techniques in the Red Lotus City to form the Heaven's Path divine art, there were sufficient lines of information that were correct, allowing Xianxia to start on the next level of cultivation. After several tries, Xianxia was able to clearly sense the half-Xianxia Zhenqi in his body growing more and more powerful, and he was barely a step away from stepping into the Xianxia realm. Even though the Library of Heaven's Path was capable of peering through the flaws of all objects and beings, Xianxia nevertheless required a stable foundation to reach greater heights. Thus, he had been studying whenever he had the time, and in just 10 days, his knowledge had expanded by more than twofold. His understanding of beast taming and poisons had deepened significantly, and even without the assistance of the Library of Heaven's Path, he could be considered as a knowledgeable veteran. At the same time, Xianxia practiced a round of the Heaven's Path fist art, Heaven's Path leg art, and Heaven's Path spear art each once more. These skills were the most fundamental of all but were capable of bringing out the strength in one's body perfectly. They boost Xianxia's abilities in offense significantly, allowing him to stand against some Xianxia realm intermediate cultivators, and perhaps even kill them. Of course, if Xianxia were to use the Library of Heaven's Path ability to detect flaws and the Heaven's Path movement art along with it, by going all out at the expense of his own body, he might be able to kill even a Xianxia realm pinnacle. It was completely unheard of for a half-Xianxia to defeat a Xianxia realm pinnacle in a straightforward fight. Even the most talented genius in the Master-Teacher Pavilion would be incapable of such a feat. Senior Granduncle, the Crimson Flame Lotus Seed has matured. Xianxia spent his entire time cultivating, and at the daybreak of the second day, Jiyu Mu knocked on his door. "All right." Nodding his head, Xianxia stood up. Xianxia had waited 10 days for this treasure, which could increase the chances of breaking through Zhizuan realm by 20, and finally, it had become ready for picking. The Red Lotus Range is a gigantic volcano, and our Poison Hall branch is built at the opening of the volcano. When the branch was built back then, a formation master was invited to build a formation to seal the volcano and gather earthen flames to nourish the Crimson Flame Lotus. Even though Liao Zun had become the official hall master, he didn't dare to pull his rank before the duo. On their way there, he explained the situation to them respectfully. "Envoy, Senior Granduncle, this way." Liao Zun had also followed Jiyu Mu's way of addressing Xianxia. Proceeding forward, the trio soon arrived at an altar. "The mouth of the volcano is hidden below." Liao Zun pointed. Xianxia glanced downward. A gigantic altar with a radius of more than 100 meters laid before them. From afar, it looked ancient. Rather than an entrance to the volcano, it seemed more like a piece of barren ruin. Xianxia was perplexed, but having heard the history of the branch, Xianxia knew that there was likely to be a formation in place, so he kept quiet. And just as he deduced, Liao Zun stepped forward to the altar. With a flick of his hands, he whipped out the token representing his identity as the Hall Master and placed it in an opening at the center of the altar. Hong long long. The world spun, and the sight before them changed immediately. A seemingly endless staircase that led downward appeared on the flat and vast altar. "This way." Liao Zun led the way, and after walking down the staircase for nearly 2 hours, a vast underground palace appeared before them. At the center of the palace was the huge mouth of the volcano. Scorching flames burned on the surface, and waves of heat gushed forth from it, making it grueling for anyone to approach. Feeling the heat surging from within, Xianxia's expression turned grim. They had yet to enter through the opening, but just the torrid air in the main hall was sufficient to cause any Pishua realm cultivator to collapse. "Envoy, Senior Granduncle, that is the Crimson Flame Lotus." Stepping forward to the entrance of the volcano, Liao Zun pointed. At the center of the volcano, amidst the searing lava, a crimson lotus floated. On it was a lotus pod filled with countless seeds, exuding a slight fragrance. "How beautiful!" Xianxia's eyes lit up. The crimson lotus before him was 2 to 3 meters tall, and its entire surface was fiery red, resembling raging flames. It was several hundred meters away from their present location, but they could already feel the heat wave emitted by it searing their skin. Putting aside Xianxia, even a Zhizuan realm expert would find the heat hard to tolerate. How do we pick the lotus?
Xianxia asked.
Not only was the heat wave emitted by the crimson lotus intolerable, the crux was that it was floating on the surface of the lava several hundred meters away from the shore.
How can one reach it?
Step into the lava? Even with the powerful Heaven's Path golden body, Xianxia would be reduced to ashes the moment he stepped in. Needless to say, the rest.
I've no idea.
My teacher was burnt to ashes while attempting to pick the lotus seed upon observing that it was nearing maturity.
Liao Zun shook his head sorrowfully.
The abrupt death of the old hall master was due to his attempt to pick the crimson flame lotus seed. The crimson flame lotus seed matures once every century, and each time, someone would succeed. The headquarter has always received your tribute, so why would the old hall master be burned to death?
Jiyu Mu asked doubtfully.
This poison hall branch had been guarding this lotus since its inception, and it wouldn't make sense for them to spend countless medicinal herbs to nourish it just to hand it over to the hands of another. Besides, this branch had been supplying the headquarter with a certain amount of lotus seed every century, so they had to have a way to harvest it. We do have a way, but we're no longer able to utilize it.
Look.
Liao Zun smiled bitterly. Picking up a rock, he threw it straight toward the crimson flame lotus. He was a Xianxia realm pinnacle expert, and under the augmentation of Xianxia, the stone flew at an incredible speed with a screeching sound, as though it was tearing air apart.
What are you doing?
Seeing the other party throw a stone with such immense force toward the crimson flame lotus, Jiyu Mu's expression darkened. The crimson flame lotus had matured, and upon being struck, it was highly likely it would fall into the lava. Once it fell in, it would be nearly impossible to find.
Envoy, take a look.
Liao Zun said. In the midst of their exchange, the stone was already right before the crimson flame lotus. Just as it was about to strike the lotus, the lava surrounding the flower trembled violently and suddenly, and a bizarre creature flew upward. Opening its mouth, it swallowed the entire stone. That bizarre creature was shaped like a snake, and it was several dozens of meters long. Covered in a thick layer of bright red scales, it swam leisurely in the lava, creating an extremely peculiar sight.
What is that?
Jiyu Mu didn't expect such a bizarre creature to be swimming in the scorching lava. He pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. Can this be the lava beast that you brought up with the headquarter previously? Upon seeing the creature, he suddenly recalled the contents of the report the Red Lotus Range branch submitted to the headquarter previously. Not only did the report talk about the abrupt death of the old hall master, it also spoke of a savage beast that lived in the lava around the lotus, and they have termed it as the lava beast. He thought that it was just nonsense the other party came up with to avoid handing over the crimson flame lotus seed, and the possibility of it being true never flashed across his mind. Yes, this is the lava beast. The unique scales around it grants it tolerance to high heat, allowing it to live in the lava. Its strength is comparable to a Xizuan realm pinnacle expert. Liao Zun flashed a bitter smile. To think that such a creature exists in the world. Jiyu Mu wasn't the only one shocked. Xianxia was perplexed by the sight as well. The temperature of the lava below was definitely above 2000 degrees Celsius. They could never have imagined that such a huge creature would be able to survive such extreme conditions if they hadn't seen it for themselves.
Indeed.
This creature appeared all of the sudden, and for the past few years, it has been guarding the crimson red lotus as though it was his property. Anyone who tries to approach it would have to suffer his attacks.
Liao Zun explained.
It is one thing if we are on the shore, but the lava is its haven. Furthermore, it has reached the level of Xizuan realm pinnacle. Honestly, we are helpless before it.
This.
Jiyu Mu's expression darkened. Even though he had achieved Xizuan realm pinnacle as well, if he were to battle with this gigantic fellow in the lava, there was a 9 out of 10 chance that he would die here. Does poison not work? Xianxia couldn't resist asking. The poison hall was adept at using poison, so it was plausible that they could kill the creature using it. The lava beast isn't afraid of even the searing earthen flames, so how can any ordinary poison be effective on it?
Liao Zun said.
The lava was about 2000 degrees Celsius hot. Most poison would be reduced to ashes before it can even reach the lava, thus making it nigh impossible to use poison. We've tried all kinds of methods, except, finding a beast tamer to tame it. Honestly speaking, there doesn't seem to be any other solution. Liao Zun shook his head. However, this is our greatest secret, and the poison hall doesn't interact with any other occupations. It is highly likely that inviting a beast tamer will cause unnecessary trouble. The poison hall didn't possess any connections with the other occupations. There were some which were actually hostile to it. Inviting people from another occupation here would mean having to reveal their den, and this could potentially bring them a catastrophe. If so, they would have wasted their years living in seclusion in the Red Lotus Range. That's right. Understanding this fact as well, Jiu Mu shook his head. Poison and brute force wouldn't work, and they couldn't hire a beast tamer either. It was indeed a huge question how they could harvest the Crimson Flame Lotus seed. Will beast tamers be able to subdue that fellow? Hearing the duo's conversation, Xianxia hesitated for a moment before speaking. Perhaps. I can give it a try. Golden Finger refers to the gifts talents one receives upon transcending to an alternate world. For example, Zhongxian's Library of Heaven's Path can be considered as a golden finger. Kongshi is most probably a reference toward Confucius, otherwise known as Kongzi. He is a philosopher who had formulated a line of thoughts that became known as Confucianism. On top of that, he is also informally known as the first teacher. Chapter 284. Go down and beat it up. Upon hearing those words, Jiu Mu and Liao Zun's eyes lit up. Can it be that senior granduncle intends to subdue it? The person before them was an incredible expert who had surpassed the Zhizuan realm. No matter how domineering this giant fellow was in the lava, if he were to make a move personally, he would be able to kill it effortlessly. It is just a small savage beast. It's not worthy of being my opponent. Zhongxian shook his head, revealing an expression full of disdain. However, on the inside, he was spurting blood. Me, subdue it? What a joke. That is a Zhizuan realm savage beast. Even if I were to face it on land, I will run as far as I can. To want me to subdue it. If I were to really get closer, I would become a delectable meal for the other party. Then. The duo was perplexed. It isn't easy for a savage beast to achieve a Zhizuan realm pinnacle cultivation. It would be a pity to kill it. Zhongxian shook his head, and a benevolent expression appeared on his face. Jiu Mu, since you're my junior, I'll give you this opportunity to tame this savage beast. Once it becomes your tamed beast, harvesting the Crimson Flame Lotus seed will be easy. Me, tame it. Jiu Mu was still wondering what ideas Zhongxian had in mind when he heard the other party's words. He staggered and nearly blacked out. Even on land, it would be difficult for him to defeat this massive fellow. To face him in lava was equivalent to courting death. To talk about taming the savage beast, it would already be a huge blessing for him to not be the one who gets tamed. Senior granduncle, I know nothing about beast taming. With a reddened face, Jiu Mu shook his head hurriedly. He had dedicated himself to the way of poison. Even though he had heard of beast taming, it was something very unfamiliar and foreign to him. To tame a humongous fellow who has achieved the same cultivation realm. Better not. I wish to live a much longer life. There's no need to worry about that, I can guide you. Zhongxian's eyebrows shot up. With an imposing tone, he spoke, Don't you believe your senior granduncle? I dare not. Shuddering, Jiu Mu hurriedly bowed. Then, unable to hold back his curiosity, he asked, Senior granduncle, can it be that you are well versed in beast taming as well? Even though this senior granduncle of his didn't appear much older than him, his mastery of poison far surpassed him, and his understanding of the way of medicine didn't seem to be mediocre. Could it be that he is versed in the art of beast taming as well? If that was the case, he would surely have been a legendary figure. But if that was the case, why hadn't he heard of him? I know a thing or two. Nodding his head, Zhongxian placed his hands behind his back as he walked to the mouth of the volcano. The lava beast was swimming in the lava around the Crimson Flame Lotus, resembling a gigantic snake. To harvest the seeds, it was impossible for them to get close without alarming it. Turning around, Zhongxian stared at Jiu Mu. This is a Zhizuan pinnacle savage beast, and countless people dream of taming such a savage beast. This is a good opportunity. Are you really reluctant to grasp hold of it?
Aye.
Seeing the other party's serious expression, Jiu Mu hesitated for a moment. Then, with a slightly reddened face, he asked, "Can I really tame it?" Taming a savage beast of the same cultivation realm meant that his fighting prowess would be increased twofold. In truth, he was tempted by the idea. On top of that, if it were to consume the crimson flame lotus seed, it was possible that it would be able to break through its bottleneck. At that time, with the strength of the human and the beast in unison, he would have a much better chance at exacting vengeance. Just that. Isn't taming savage beasts a skill that only beast tamers are capable of? Guide me. Even if you were to guide me, it is impossible for me to become a beast tamer instantly and be able to tame this incredible savage beast. If you follow my instructions carefully, taming it shouldn't be a problem. Sensing that the other party had been tempted by his offer, Xianxia swung his sleeves and spoke indifferently. The choice is yours. If you are unwilling to do so, we can drop the idea. It's just a Xizuan realm savage beast. I can kill it effortlessly. However, if you miss this opportunity, there won't be a second chance. This. Jiu Mu's eyes flickered with hesitation and doubt. But eventually, he gritted his teeth and nodded. All right, Senior Granduncle. What should I do? Do I need to prepare anything? It was indeed a good opportunity for him. Not only did the savage beast rival him in strength, it did not fear poison. The moment he succeeded, his standing in the Shenyuan branch would rise greatly. Even though Jiu Mu had never tamed a savage beast, he had seen others do so. He knew that a beast tamer would have to prepare numerous items beforehand so as to attract the other party's attention and win its goodwill. He would have to find a way to deepen his bond with it and gradually gain intimacy before it would submit to him. There's no need for it, and there's no time either. Xianxia shook his head. Since this fellow has decided to camp around this crimson flame lotus, he must be extremely fond of it. No matter what it is that we prepare, it is impossible to be more attractive to it than this lotus. Besides, the lotus seed has already matured and it is ready for consumption. If we were to start making preparations now, by the time we're done, it would have already eaten all of the seeds. That. Jiu Mu was perplexed. If we do not prepare any gifts for the lava beast, how will we attract its attention? At this moment, the senior granduncle's voice sounded once more. It's simple. You'll jump down right now and beat it up. After that, I will tell you how you should tame it. Beat it up. Jiu Mu's face turned green. Other people would be thinking of ways to win the trust of the savage beast and move it. Yet, this senior granduncle asked me to attack it. Won't we incur this gigantic fellow's wrath this way? Once this fellow bears hostility toward us, wouldn't it become impossible for me to tame it? More importantly, it is highly probable that I would be unable to return once I go down. Are you sure that you are sending me to tame this savage beast, not to feed it? Sensing his hesitation, Xianxia knew what he was worried about. Thus, he reassured him, "Don't worry, I'm here. It won't be easy for that fellow to kill you." Yes. Jiu Mu clenched his jaws. That's right. Senior Granduncle is a formidable figure who has surpassed Xizuan realm. With him here, how can I possibly be subdued by that mere lava beast? Of course, if he were to know that this senior granduncle of his had merely a half-Xianxia cultivation realm and that he could easily crush him to death, he would probably burst into tears. Having made up his mind, Jiu Mu took in a deep breath and flicked his wrist. The next moment, a sword appeared in his palm. Pumping the Xianxia in his body, he slashed at the ground several times swiftly, and the firm granite ground was immediately cut into tiles of similar sizes. There were roughly 70 to 80 tiles, and each of them was a square of a kai wide. He stacked those tiles up and placed them before Liao Zun. "Hall Master Liao, I'll have to trouble you to build a footpath for me later on." "All right." Liao Zun nodded. Even Xizuan realm pinnacle cultivators were incapable of flight. To fight with the lava beast from above the scorching lava, he had to build suitable footpaths. By throwing these tiles into the lava, Jiu Mu would be able to utilize the feedback between the granite and the lava to move about. This is a feat that only Xizuan realm experts are capable of. A Xianxia wouldn't even be able to tolerate the heat wave, needless to say, tread above the lava. Senior granduncle. I'll be going down now. Now that the preparations were in place, Jiyu Mu took in a deep breath. Xianxia waved casually in response. Who? Upon seeing the senior granduncle's response, Jiyu Mu pumped his Xianxia to the maximum, and with a flick of his wrist, threw out a granite tile, and it landed on the surface of the lava. At the same time, he rushed forward and leaped toward the tile. Stepping lightly on the tile, he was able to push himself upward once again. Most Zhizuan realm experts would have cultivated lightweight movement techniques, which allowed them to even tread across the surface of the water. As such, treading the denser lava wasn't a problem at all. Seeing the other party starting to descend, Liao Zun immediately estimated his landing spot and threw a tile over. As though a dragonfly treading on water, he stepped on the granite tile and leaped upward once more. Just like that, he quickly arrived before the lava beast. Let's begin. Gathering the entire might of his body into his sword, Jiyu Mu roared and stabbed straight at the lava beast. Since he was facing the lava beast, he had to give his all without reserve. Otherwise, the one who will end up dead would be him. Roar! Seeing that someone had made an attack against it, the lava beast flew into a rage. Roaring loudly, his bulky tail lashed out. Hualala! Magma splashed about the field with great force. Before Jiyu Mu could reach the lava beast, he felt an overwhelming heat gushing straight at him. Jiyu Mu hurriedly twisted his wrist to turn the stab into a parry. Ding! The tail struck his sword, and the aerial Jiyu Mu was sent flying instantaneously as if he were a cannonball. After determining precisely the other party's landing spot, Liao Zun swiftly threw a tile over for Jiyu Mu to step on. Even though the both of them didn't have any experience of working together, as a Xianxia realm pinnacle expert, Liao Zun wouldn't commit a mistake in the simple job of throwing tiles. Senior granduncle, what do I do next? Not expecting the creature to be so formidable as to be able to send him flying with a single strike of its tail, Jiyu Mu questioned in a panic. Give me a moment, I haven't thought of it yet. You should continue for now. Xianxia waved his hands. You haven't thought of what to do. Continue. Jiyu Mu nearly failed to land on the tile and almost fell into the lava. This senior granduncle is too unreliable. It was just a moment ago that you claimed that you will guide me to tame the savage beast, that I should first engage it. The battle has already started, yet you have not come up with an idea. Do you need to be so darned? Who? Just as Jiyu Mu was feeling dismal, the provoked lava beast charged up to him, and its sharp dagger-like teeth abruptly closed in on him. The attack came too swiftly, and Jiyu Mu didn't have any time to evade. Thus, he could only face it head-on with his sword. Pang! The sword came into contact with the lava beast's sharp teeth. Feeling a numbness in his hands, Jiyu Mu was sent flying once again. Lava flowed beneath Jiyu Mu. Even though he was able to move around using those granite tiles, without the solid earth for his feet to apply his force on, the strength he could exert dipped significantly. At present, he was only capable of displaying 60 to 70% of his full strength. It was impossible to face the frenzied attacks of the lava beast in his weakened state. Senior granduncle, are you ready yet? It took much effort before he managed to stabilize himself once more. He glanced at Xianxia immediately to rush him, but what he saw was the other party standing on the spot with a blank expression, as though he was daydreaming. That a chill surged into his heart, and at this, Jiyu Mu really cried. If only he knew this senior granduncle of his was that unreliable, he would have never come down. Now that this fellow was fixated on him, it was impossible for him to escape even if he wanted to. Will he really meet his end here? Forget it, I'll go all out. Knowing that it was impossible for him to escape, he gritted his teeth and lifted his sword high up. Xianxia flurried through his body as though a storm, and he sent the sword right down on the lava beast. Pang! When the two came into contact, Jiyu Mu was sent flying 10 meters backward once more. It was fortunate that Liao Zun was able to determine his landing points accurately each time with precise timing. Otherwise, he would have long fallen into the lava and be reduced to ashes. Ding ding ding. After crossing a few more blows with the lava beast, Jiyu Mu was already on the verge of collapsing. At this moment, A voice sounded by his ear. "All right, listen to my instructions." Turning around, he saw his senior granduncle looking at him with a calm expression. Chapter 285, Master-Teacher Pavilion, Here I Come. Roar! In the split moment when Jiyu Mu's attention was diverted by Xianxia, the lava beast charged forward once more, generating frightening torrid air currents that threatened to rip him apart. Taking a deep breath, Jiyu Mu prepared to face it once more with the sword in his hands. However, at this moment, his senior granduncle's voice sounded once again. "Don't fend off its attack. Keep your sword back into your storage ring. Don't fend off its attack." Upon hearing those words, Jiyu Mu glanced at the agitated lava beast which was charging toward him, and he nearly keeled over. If he doesn't fend against such a violent attack, won't he be killed instantly? Hurry up! In the midst of his hesitation, the voice urged him. All right. Even though he was doubtful, he didn't think that his senior granduncle would go through so much trouble to kill him. Thus, he kept his sword back into his storage ring, and at this moment, became completely defenseless. Stretch your head toward him. Right after he kept his sword, the next instruction reached his ears. Jiyu Mu staggered, and he nearly fell off the granite tile into the lava. "I can still accept it, albeit reluctantly, when you tell me to keep my sword and not fend off its attack, but why in the world do I have to stretch my head forward? Senior granduncle, are you in such a hurry to see me die? Looking at how furious the lava beast is charging at me, wouldn't it bite my head off immediately if I were to stretch it over? This isn't beast taming at all, this is a tribute. Don't waste any time, hurry up." The voice by his ear urged him. The duo was conversing through Xianxia telepathy. Even though they had exchanged quite a few words, only 2 breaths had passed. At this moment, the ferocious lava beast was just 3 meters away from Jiyu Mu, and it could bite down on him at any moment now. It was already too late to try anything else. Forget it, I'll just give it a try. Reminding himself of the fact that his senior granduncle could have easily killed him when he was unconscious, he told himself that there was no need for him to use this gigantic fellow to murder him. Gritting his teeth, he stuck out his head, pointing it right into the other party's gaping mouth. This. As the duo spoke using telepathy, Liao Zun was completely oblivious to their exchange. Upon seeing the envoy trying to send his head into the mouth of the lava beast, he was horrified. His entire body trembled violently, and he was about to pass out. Others would prepare delicacies and treasures to attract a savage beast's attention in order to tame it. It was his first time seeing someone offer his own head. Even those who surpassed Zhizuan realm would have their brain matter spurt out upon the bite of the lava beast. If the envoy were to be killed here, he wouldn't have to dream about holding on to his position as the new hall master. He would be summoned by the headquarter immediately and be questioned for a month or 2 before being sentenced to death by poison. He quickly turned to look at the senior granduncle, but the other party was watching the situation impassively. There wasn't the slightest bit of anxiety in his eyes. Senior granduncle. Liao Zun couldn't help but yell for the other party to do something. However, before he could say anything else, he saw the other party point forward with his finger. Hurriedly turning his head over, he witnessed a sight that left his eyes widened. Jiyu Mu's head was already within the lava beast's mouth, and if the latter closed its mouth, he would be killed on the spot. However, at this crucial moment, not only did the lava beast not bite down, it even turned around to flee. Isn't it intent on tearing Jiyu Mu into pieces a moment ago? Why would it back away when the other party has delivered his head to it? What is this situation? He wasn't the only one who was bewildered by what was happening. Jiyu Mu was also confounded. He had already prepared himself for his death, and he hadn't expected such a situation to occur. Don't blank out. Quickly, rush forward and grab its tail. Jiyu Mu was still trying to make sense out of the situation when his senior granduncle's voice echoed once more. At this point, he was already holding complete confidence in the other party's words. Thus, he stepped against the granite tile immediately and flew forward as if he were a swallow. In the blink of an eye, he had caught up with the other party. Closing his arms, he embraced the creature's bulky tail tightly. Roar! Having his tail grabbed, the lava beast panicked. It began to thrash about immediately with all its might, and lava splashed into the surroundings, burning hole after hole in Ji Mu's clothes. What do I do next? Sensing that his Xianxia was reaching its limits from fending against the lava's heat, Ji Mu asked anxiously. Hold its tail tightly, no matter what it does.
Xianxia replied.
All right. With vicious tenacity, Ji Mu held onto the lava beast's tail with his 4 limbs. No matter how the other party struggled, he refused to let go. At this moment, he had no choice but to furiously pump even more Xianxia to fend off the intense heat in the surroundings. Roar! Roar! With its tail grabbed, Lava Beast was infuriated and it howled ceaselessly in anger, trying its best to shake Ji Mu off. However, its movements gradually slowed, and in less than a single minute, it went limp, its condition resembling a dead snake.
This.
Seeing the lava beast collapse, Ji Mu heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that he was going to die, and the current situation was unbelievable to him. He had felt the ferocity from the lava beast when he faced it just a moment ago, that if it could, it would surely have torn him into pieces. But, when he stretched his head toward the other party, why did it refuse to bite down and, instead, back off? Also, why did grabbing its tail result in this situation? All right, bring it up to shore. Ji Mu was still wondering when he heard his senior granduncle's instruction in his ears.
Yes.
Grabbing onto the tail end of the paralyzed lava beast, he exercised his Xianxia and dragged it to shore. In no time, the human and the beast were on the concrete granite ground. Xianxia walked up to the lava beast the moment it was on shore. With a flick of his wrist, a few silver needles appeared in his hands and he threw them straight at the lava beast. Tell it to submit to you. If it agrees, I'll help it achieve a breakthrough in its cultivation. Otherwise, die. After which, Xianxia sat quietly by the side. All right. Ji Mu walked up to the lava beast and relayed Xianxia's words. A moment later, its massive head nuzzled against him, displaying its submission. The contract was established swiftly and Ji Mu had successfully tamed the lava beast. Liao Zun was completely dumbfounded, observing everything from beside. He had seen people tame beasts, but he had never seen anyone doing it so speedily. That is a Xizuan realm pinnacle savage beast. For it to submit to a human so easily, isn't this too simple? If taming a beast is that easy, doesn't that mean that I can be a beast tamer as well? He wasn't the only one who thought so. Ji Mu also felt as if he was in a dream. If not for the massive lava beast nuzzling against him continuously, he would truly doubt if everything was an illusion. Senior granduncle. Knowing that the one who pulled this miracle off was the senior granduncle, the duo turned to look at him immediately. This lava beast lives in the lava, and it doesn't have any peer or companion. It has never come into contact with any other life forms, and as such, it has a skeptical personality, having a fear of coming into contact with unfamiliar things. Knowing the question that was lingering in their minds, Xianxia explained. Even a person would become autistic after living in seclusion for too long. Needless to say, a savage beast. A Xizuan realm pinnacle savage beast possesses an intelligence that is in no way inferior to humans. Living in the depths of the volcano, it had not once met another life form. As such, it was filled with curiosity and fear for Ji Mu. When you utilized brute force and tried to kill it, it had retaliated instinctively. Even though this lava beast didn't have any battle experience, it held the advantage of being on its home ground, and it would have been impossible for you to emerge triumphantly.
Xianxia continued. Ji Mu nodded.
In that battle just now, he could barely fend off the other party's attacks. He clearly wasn't a match for the latter. If it had continued that way, he would surely have died. Even though keeping your sword and sending your head to it was a clear act of suicide, the skeptical lava beast was doubtful toward your actions, and it felt fear. That's because the move was irrational. Xianxia smiled. On top of that, the lava beast has a huge weakness on its mouth. Upon seeing your irrational movement, it began to suspect if you had noticed that weakness and that you were baiting it. Thus, it chose to escape instead. So that's the case. Upon hearing the explanation, Ji Mu and Liao Zun came to a realization. Ji Mu felt relieved that he had listened to his senior granduncle earlier on. Otherwise, if he were to continue fighting against the lava beast, he would have become a cripple by now. Then, why did grabbing its tail cause it to fall limp and lose its ability to fight? Do savage beasts need to breathe? Xianxia looked at him. Of course they need to breathe. Surprised by the question, Ji Mu was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly nodded his head. Just like humans, savage beasts require air to survive. The lava beast had been living in the lava, but when we first arrived, we didn't see it. Don't you find it strange? Ji Mu was taken aback by Xianxia's words. The reason why fishes can breathe in water is that it has gills that can filter out water and absorb the oxygen contained within it. Lava is in fact just molten granite, and it is impossible for there to be oxygen within the thick lava. When the three of them first arrived, they did not observe the lava beast's head. It was only after Liao Zun threw a stone at the lotus that it jumped out. Can it be that this fellow doesn't need to breathe? But that is impossible. It is not heard of that a savage beast can survive without breathing. The breathing organ for lava beast, which is to mean the nose that we speak of, isn't on its head. Rather, it's on its tail. Xianxia explained. On its tail. The duo hurriedly turned to the lava beast, and they saw 2 rows of fine opening on its tail. Usually, this fellow would hide in the lava, exposing only its tail to breathe. Furthermore, its tail is the same color as the lava, and that's the reason why we failed to notice it when we first arrived. Xianxia smiled. The reason why I had you hug the other party's tail is to obstruct its breathing. While a cultivator would still be able to sustain himself through his Xianxia, the same can't be said about savage beasts. Not to mention, it was thrashing around the scorching lava, causing its stamina to fall rapidly. Naturally, it would lose its ability to fight. I didn't notice these special characteristics from the start as well, and I only managed to deduce them during your battle. I see. Ji Mu finally comprehended the situation, the reason why his senior granduncle didn't say anything at the start. The other party wasn't toying with him, he was observing the characteristics of the lava beast to formulate a plan to subdue and tame it. It was laughable that he mistook his intentions. It was truly embarrassing. Upon knowing all these facts, Ji Mu's reverence for his senior granduncle reached a new peak. He was able to deduce the characteristics and personality of this lava beast within such a short period of time while observing their battle and formulate a method to tame it. Even a 4-star beast tamer would be incapable of accomplishing the same feat. On top of that, the needles which he shot out at the lava beast probably curbed the other party's movements. Otherwise, it was impossible for the taming process to proceed so smoothly. Now that the lava beast has been tamed, you can now harvest the lotus seed. Done with his explanation, Xianxia waved casually. All right. Ji Mu nodded, and without a word ado, he leaped into the lava once more, flitting swiftly toward the crimson flame lotus. Actually, upon seeing Ji Mu successfully tame the lava beast, Xianxia had heaved a sigh of relief as well. Just like humans, the Library of Heaven's Path will compile a book on a savage beast when it is engaged in a fight. The reason why he had Ji Mu face off with it was to compile a book to view its flaws. Once he knew its flaws, the rest became simple. Without the obstruction of the lava beast, Ji Mu brought a lotus pod back in no time. There were 9 gold lotus seeds within, and it emanated a fragrance which rejuvenated one's spirit. Senior granduncle, this is the crimson flame lotus seed. Placing the lotus seed carefully in a jade box, Ji Mu passed it forward. UN. Grabbing over the box, Xianxia took out 2 of the seeds and passed it over to Ji Mu. One is for you, while the other one is for this lava beast. They had agreed beforehand that Ji Mu would take 1 crimson flame lotus seed, while the rest would belong to Xianxia. Due to the presence of this lava beast which was already at Jizuan Pinnacle, Xianxia decided to give him another seed. After all, if not for this envoy telling him about it, Xianxia wouldn't have known that there was such a treasure hidden in this poison hall branch, and he would have missed it. Thank you, senior granduncle. Ji Mu was moved with great agitation. Here, I will leave this one at this branch. Whoever who reaches Jizuan Realm Pinnacle first will gain the right to consume it. Xianxia took out another seed and passed it to Liao Zun. The latter was also extremely grateful to Xianxia. Even though the crimson flame lotus seed was a precious commodity, it wasn't of much use to Xianxia. As long as he was able to find sufficient secret manuals, breaking through Xizuan realm pinnacle wasn't a problem at all. As such, the bottleneck in cultivation which others faced was non-existent for him. Since it wasn't much use to him, and that he had obtained it from the Red Lotus Range Poison Hall branch, he didn't think that it was right for him to deprive the branch of all seeds. After giving 3 of the lotus seeds out, Xianxia kept the remaining 6 in his storage ring. Since I'm done with the matters here, it's time for me to leave. Xianxia had accomplished his primary aim of browsing through the books in the Poison Hall, and he obtained the Crimson Flame Lotus seeds on top of that. After conducting the last treatment for Jiyu Mu, he bided the others farewell. Senior Granduncle, where can I find you if I wish to greet you in the future? Even though he knew that the other party would leave after harvesting the Crimson Flame Lotus seeds, Jiyu Mu nevertheless felt a reluctance to part with him. Even though he had merely known the other party for a few days, the latter had treated his trauma and helped him tame a Xizuan realm pinnacle savage beast. The favor that he had showered upon him was so great that it would be hard for him to repay. Even though he had roughly guessed that the other party might not be his senior granduncle as he claimed to be, it didn't hinder his respect for him in any way. The world is my home. If we're fated, we'll eventually meet. Xianxia shook his head. He was assuming a pseudo-identity, and it was best for them not to meet ever again. Senior Granduncle, this is my identity token. I know that it is useless to Senior Granduncle, but if you have any kin or students who are in trouble, you can get them to take this to Shenyuan Kingdom's Poison Hall to look for me. As long as it is within my means, I'll do my best to help. With a flick of his wrist, he retrieved a jade token and then passed it to Xianxia. All right then, thank you. Knowing that the other party was doing this to repay the gratitude, Xianxia didn't turn him down. He took the token and kept it in his storage ring. Farewell. After saying all that had to be said, Xianxia walked out of the Poison Hall with large strides. He remembered the roads he took on the way here with the Great Herb King, so even without anyone to lead him, he was able to leave easily. 5 days later, he finally stepped out from the perimeters of the Red Lotus Range. He yelled with a deep tone, and after a moment, the steel-fang howling firmament beast appeared in the air above him. Leaping onto the back of the howling firmament beast, the latter unfurled its wings, and the duo headed straight toward Qianwu Royal City. Master Teacher Pavilion, here I come. Chapter 286. Qianwu Royal City. The vast lands of Qianwu Kingdom span tens of thousands of kilometers. Due to the backing of 2-star master teachers, it is classified as a Tier 1 kingdom. Qianxian, Beiwu, Hanwu, Beichen, Qianyuan, Arnyuan, Bailey. With Qianwu located right at the center of 12 other neighboring kingdoms, Qianwu Kingdom became the cultivation and trading hub in the area, a sacred land where countless people yearned to travel to. Princess Mo Yu had long left on her viridescent eagle, and thus, Xianxia was the only person on the howling firmament beast's back. Out of boredom, Xianxia worked on increasing his knowledge in the Library of Heaven's Path and, at the same time, reinforced his cultivation and evaluated his current condition. Along with the rise of my cultivation, the effect of the Heaven's Path golden body is becoming increasingly insignificant. When Xianxia was at Tongxian realm, the Heaven's Path golden body had allowed him to easily subdue cultivators of the same realm. Upon reaching half Xianxia, the effects had become less apparent. Eventually, when he reaches Xianxia realm, its potency would be reduced further, to the point that it becomes insignificant. It appeared there was a need for him to look for additional physical body cultivation techniques for further upgrade and training. As for Heaven's Path fist art, Heaven's Path leg art, Heaven's Path movement art, even though they were simple moves, they wielded incredible strength. From the looks of it, before he reached Xizuan, it was unlikely for him to be outdone in terms of battle technique. Thus, there was no hurry for him to look for new books. I'll have to take the Master Teacher examination as soon as possible after reaching Qianwu Kingdom. Only after becoming a Master Teacher will I gain the rights to enter the Master Teacher Pavilion and browse through records on Kongshe. On the way here, he had written what Jiyu Mu told him about Kongshe on a blank piece of paper and confirmed the matter using the Library of Heaven's Path. It was true that Celestial Kongshe was afflicted with the innate fetal poison just like him, and that he was later cured of the poison. That was to say, the innate fetal poison wasn't without a cure. It was just that at his current standard, he was unable to identify the correct method to cure it. After coming to this conclusion, Zhong Xian felt reassured. However, at the same time, doubts emerged in his mind. His previous self was only an orphan, so why would an 8-star or 9-star poison master go so far as to poison him himself? Could it be possible that he possessed an incredible background and came from a powerful family? Even though Zhong Xian was perplexed, he decided not to think too much about the matter. Putting aside the fact that his previous self was an abandoned orphan, he, as a transcender, felt uncomfortable at the thought of abruptly stumbling upon people claiming to be his parents or one of his kins. Rather than to feel distressed, it was much wiser to just ignore it altogether. In any case, with the Library of Heaven's Path in his grasp, Zhong Xian could only grow stronger. The world is vast, and there was nowhere that he couldn't go. After traveling for another 2 days, when the sun was about to set in the west, a towering city appeared before Zhong Xian's eyes. Under the orange glow of the evening sun, the city appeared just like a vast mountain range which extended into the horizon. The city was more than several dozen times larger than Xianxia Royal City. Its infrastructures were beautiful and elegant, and the ancient city walls which stood dozens of meters tall were comparable to relics of history and were altogether an imposing sight. Staring down from above, the streets in the city were well connected and filled with crowds walking to and fro. All kinds of carriages and horses were traveling in and out of the city, creating an image of a lively painting. As the trading hub of 13 kingdoms, Qianwu Royal City was extraordinarily grand. It simply wasn't something that any of the cities Zhong Xian had seen could compare to. Let's go down. Knowing that a city of such scale would surely have restrictions on massive savage beasts such as the howling firmament beast, Zhong Xian decided not to cause a ruckus. Thus, he landed at a location in the mountains not too far from the city, where the howling firmament beast could behave freely, before walking toward the grand city with big strides. Please wait a moment. You've to pay the entrance fee to enter the city. He was about to walk through the gates when a group of guards stopped him. Entrance fee. Only upon looking around him did he realize that all visitors had to pay a certain sum to enter the city. If there wasn't such a restriction, the Qianwu Royal City's population would surely suffer from an uncontrollable population growth, possibly to the point that even the Qianwu royal family would be unable to manage the situation. That's right. Unless you're a master teacher or apprentice, you'll have to pay the toll fee. The guard said. Master teachers were the foundation to the progress of the world, and thus, they possessed a high status in society. No matter where they went, they would be granted special privileges. This was something that the other occupations can never enjoy. Enough. What's the use of wasting your breath on him? Given his age, how could he be a master teacher or a master teacher apprentice? That's right. Hurry up, there is a huge crowd waiting behind you. Seeing that the fellow was wasting their times, the 2 guards became impatient. The crowd behind which was waiting to enter the city was also urging them to hurry up. What are you putting an act for? Since its establishment several thousand years ago, a toll had been imposed on all entries into the city. For you to not even know such a basic fact, which backward place did you come from? How much does it cost? Ignoring their irritated gazes, Zhong Xian asked. 100 gold coins. A guard replied. 100. Zhong Xian was astonished. Even a star teacher in Hongqian Academy earned only 2,000 gold coins per month. 100 gold coins for an entrance fee was indeed exorbitant. That's right. Seeing the shocked expression on the other party's face, it was clear that he was someone who had never seen the world. The guards stared at him contemptuously. To make such a huge fuss over 100 gold coins, it is clear that he is a poor bloke. I don't have money. Zhong Xian shook his head. Upon hearing those words, the guards revealed an expression that screamed, I knew that you would say that, and bellowed, if you don't have money, don't waste our time here. For you to think that you can enter the city like that, you must be dreaming. However, before he could finish his words, the irksome fellow before him lifted up a token in his hand and looked at him with an excited expression. But with this, I shouldn't have to pay any money, right? No matter what you have, It doesn't make a difference. Ah. A Master Teacher Apprentice Identity Token. Halfway through his words, the guard recognized the token in the other party's hands. His entire body trembled in shock, and all of the words that he was about to speak choked in his mouth. At this point, he was already on the verge of tears. Are you a Master Teacher Apprentice? Those guards who were criticizing him just a moment ago turned pale upon seeing the token. They had thought that he was a countryside bumpkin, but to think that he would be a formidable figure. Brother, if you're a Master Teacher Apprentice, you could have just entered straight away. Why do you have to go through all the trouble to ask us about the toll fee? Aren't you intentionally making things difficult for us? Please enter. Suppressing the stifling sensation in their chests, the guards stepped aside immediately to open up a path for him. If the royal family were to find out that they had troubled a Master Teacher Apprentice, their heads might be lopped off their necks. Upon seeing that the token Liu Shu and the others could allow him to enter freely, Xianxia nodded in satisfaction. To think that this toy would be this useful, saving me 100 gold coins so easily. The guards. They had seen misers, but they had never seen such a Scrooge. For a Master Teacher Apprentice, a figure who induces respect no matter where he goes, to be so happy just because he saved 100 gold coins. Behaving like that, aren't you doing injustice to your prestigious identity? Ignoring the stifled guards, Xianxia walked right into the city. Even though he had several 10 million gold coins in his storage ring, he nevertheless maintained the mindset of a spendthrift. After all, gold coin saved is a gold coin earned. As for the opinions of others, what does it have to do with me? The streets within the city were wide, shops could be seen all around, and vendors shouted passionately to gather customers. The remaining sunlight from the setting sun reflected off the towering buildings, inducing in oneself a warm feeling. As expected of Qianwu Royal City, an object picked at random from any vendor is of much higher grade than those in Xianxia Kingdom. Walking along the street, Xianxia glanced at the various products sold in the stores, and he could not help but feel astonished. Him right now was like Granny Liu stepping into the Prospect Gardens, curious about everything around him. Even though he had read about most of the objects present here in the books, it was a different thing to see them in person. So you're a Master Teacher Apprentice as well? Xianxia was looking around his surroundings when a voice sounded behind him. Turning around, he saw a lady in her 20s looking at him with a perplexed expression. This lady was dressed in a light green robe. Even though her appearance paled in comparison to amazing beauties like Shun by Ru and the others, she had an amiable face which felt pleasant to the sight. An elder dressed in an obvious bodyguard outfit stood beside her, and the aura he exuded felt deep. From time to time, a spark of light would flash across his eyes. He was a Xianxia realm expert. To be able to hire a Xianxia realm expert as her bodyguard, this lady was likely to be of an extraordinary standing. UN. Xianxia replied casually. It was likely that these two saw his apprentice token when he entered the city, so they gave chase to ask him about it. Me too. With a laughter, the lady flipped her hand and a token appeared in her palm. To think that she would be a Master Teacher Apprentice as well. Incredible. Xianxia was impressed. In Xianxia Kingdom, even someone as outstanding as Lu Zun was unable to become a Master Teacher Apprentice, but a random lady he met on the streets turned out to be one. The disparity between both kingdoms was indeed huge. The lady was clearly satisfied with Xianxia's response, and her attitude toward him improved significantly. My teacher is 1-star Master Teacher Xianxia. May I know who you're studying under? My teacher isn't well known, and I doubt you would have heard of him. Xianxia shook his head. He didn't actually have a teacher, and this token was given to him by Liu Shu and the others. As such, he could only beat around the bush. Seeing that the other party was unwilling to disclose anything, the lady also didn't pursue this any further. Instead, she looked at him with a doubtful expression and asked, "For you to arrive at the capital at such a time, can you be here for the question symposium as well?" Question symposium. Xianxia was bewildered. What's that? You don't know. The lady stared at Xianxia as though he was a monster. The question symposium is the final test for the Master Teacher examination. Only those who have passed the question symposium can become a true master teacher. Since you're a master teacher apprentice, how can you not even know about it? Xianxia was confused. He only obtained the apprentice token by impersonating as Xianxia's disciple, so there wasn't anyone to explain to him the process of the master teacher examination. Previously, Liu Shi and the others had only spoken briefly about the eligibility for the examination, and they hadn't touched on anything else in detail. Thus, he didn't know about the question symposium. That's right. The lady hesitated for a moment, and a thought seemed to have flashed into her head. Coming to an epiphany, she said, I get it, you must have just become an apprentice not too long ago. As a new apprentice, it is a long way before you can take the master teacher examination. Naturally, your teacher wouldn't have told you about the examination yet. Xianxia nodded in agreement. Putting aside how long it had been since he became a master teacher apprentice, it wasn't even 2 months since he arrived in this world. Besides, there wasn't even a single master teacher in Xianxia Kingdom, and there wasn't a single book on master teachers. Thus, it would be a wonder if Xianxia knew about the examination process. Since you've just become an apprentice, you need not be so anxious. Study hard, and as long as you pass the examination within 10 years, you will bring glory to your ancestors. Hearing that the other party had just become an apprentice, the lady's attitude became even more amiable. After all, we can't expect ourselves to be as talented as Princess Mo Yu and pass the master teacher examination at 22. Upon speaking of Princess Mo Yu, her eyes began to glow in reverence. Granny Liu stepping into the Prospect Gardens reference to the dream of the Red Chamber. It is similar to Alice walking into Wonderland. Chapter 287. Painter Guild. Princess Mo Yu passed the master teacher examination. Xianxia asked with doubt. Wasn't her still an apprentice when they were at Red Lotus City? He had spent only 20 days in the Poison Hall. Could it be that the princess began the master teacher examination the moment she arrived in Qianwu Kingdom and had passed it? Princess Mo Yu is one of the most renowned geniuses in Qianwu Kingdom. She has just returned from her training half a month ago and, upon her return, passed the 2-star apothecary examination before taking on the master teacher examination. In a single breath, she overcame countless tests, and all that is left is the question symposium tomorrow. As long as she conquers the question symposium, she will become a true 1-star master teacher. The lady's eyes shone with excitement. The only one who can outdo her feat of becoming a 1-star master teacher at 22 would be the #1 genius in Qianwu Kingdom, Mo Hongyi. Mo Hongyi. Despite being a 2-star apothecary, 1-star beast tamer, 1-star master teacher, and apprentice physician at 22, she actually isn't the #1 genius? You don't know about him. Seeing the confusion on the other party's face, the lady became speechless. If she hadn't witnessed his apprentice token for herself, she would have thought that he was a fake. It is one thing for you not to know about the various tests in the master teacher examination and the question symposium, but to not even know Mo Hongyi. Which corner of the world did you pop out from? Is he famous? Xianxia asked. Upon hearing those words, the lady suppressed the stifling sensation in her chest and asked, It can't be that. Is this your first time coming to Qianwu Royal City? UN. Xianxia nodded. Fine. Seeing how the other party admitted to the matter so frankly without the slightest bit of embarrassment, the lady rolled her eyes. Anyone else would surely be filled with embarrassment and a sense of inferiority upon being asked such a question, but this fellow answered it so boldly. It is as though coming to Qianwu Kingdom for the first time is a glorious affair. It is truly a wonder how he has such confidence. Since you don't know about him, let me tell you. The lady explained, Mo Hongyi is reputed as the #1 genius in Qianwu Kingdom in the past 1,000 years of history, and his name is known throughout the surrounding 13 countries. Despite being just 26 this year, he is already a 1-star pinnacle master teacher, 2-star apothecary, 2-star formation master, and 2-star blacksmith. Xianxia widened his eyes in shock. 1-star pinnacle master teacher, 2-star apothecary, 2-star formation master, and 2-star blacksmith. Despite being just 26, he was shouldering 4 great occupations of the upper 9 paths. From the looks of it, he is on a totally different level from Lu Xun, who is also reputed as a genius in Xianxia Kingdom. In fact, even Mo Yu is far from his match. Seeing the change in the other party's expression, the lady nodded her head in satisfaction before continuing on. Not only so, this great genius Mo's talent in cultivation is also outstanding. 3 years ago, he achieved Xianxia realm and defeated the Xianxia realm intermediate stage General Tai Shu. After which, with a single sword, he slaughtered the 5 northern warriors who have been plaguing the northern regions. One must know all 5 of them were Xianxia realm experts, and 3 of them had even reached Xianxia realm intermediate stage. For him to kill all 5 of them single-handedly, I would not have dared to believe it if I had not heard it from a reliable source. At the start of this year, he reached Xianxia realm advanced stage. Just a while ago, at the Heaven Spring Peak, he battled the Xianxia realm pinnacle master Hong Ruo, defeating him within 100 blows. Furthermore, in the midst of the battle, he successfully achieved a breakthrough in his cultivation, reaching Xianxia realm pinnacle. Even the emperor had complimented him as a genius who appears only once in 1,000 years, and that his future accomplishments would be limitless. Xianxia realm pinnacle at 26. Furthermore, he is capable of battling those with cultivation above his. Zhong Xian was astounded. It was no wonder why he could be reputed as the #1 genius in the past 1,000 years. This Mo Hongyi was indeed a fearsome figure. In comparison to him, all of the so-called geniuses he had seen were as though fireflies before the sun, too insignificant to mention. Since this Mo Hongyi's surname is Mo, does it mean that he is part of the Qianwu royal family as well? Suddenly, Zhong Xian noticed a peculiarity and asked, Princess Mo Yu's surname is Mo, so this means that the royal family of Qianwu Kingdom goes by this surname. Can this Mo Hongyi be a member of royalty as well? That's right. The lady nodded her head. He is a son of one of the princes, but he isn't favored by the emperor. Although he is Princess Mo Yu's elder brother in terms of seniority, his standing pales far in comparison to hers. Even so, given his talent, no one dares to underestimate him. UN. Zhong Xian agreed. In this world, even though one's birth determines his nobility, as long as one is willing to work hard, he can nevertheless earn respect. Mo Hongyi was an example. Even though he wasn't in line for the throne, given his current prestige, if he truly wanted the crown, the other princes were not likely to be a match for him. When one's capabilities exceed a certain level, schemes and ploys become laughable deeds that are comparable to playing house. Seeing the other party enter into contemplation, the lady continued, However, even though he's an incredible figure, I revere Princess Mo Yu more. Not only is she beautiful, she's talented as well. I want to be like her, polite, humble and possesses an earnest desire for knowledge. Just like her, I'll work hard and make a name for myself with my own capabilities. Polite, humble, and possessing an earnest desire for knowledge. Zhong Xian had been with this Princess Mo Yu for many days, but why hadn't he noticed these strengths of hers? Shaking his head, he chose not to dwell on this question. Recalling all that the other party had said before, he asked, The question symposium that you spoke of. Other than Princess Mo Yu, how many other people are taking it? Upon hearing his question, the lady rolled her eyes once more. Do you think master teachers are like cabbages in the market, available whenever you want it? There might not even be a single person who successfully passes every test in the master teacher examination in the whole of a year. I've specially traveled here from Quanhai City just to spectate the princess's master teacher inauguration ceremony, so how can there be anyone else? Quanhai City. A book appeared in Zhong Xian's mind, and within it was a map of Qianwu Kingdom. For example, if Qianwu Royal City were Qianxian Royal City, Quanhai City would be similar to Baiyu City, the second largest city in Qianwu Kingdom. Given that this talkative and extroverted lady was escorted by a Xianxia realm bodyguard, it was likely that her standing wasn't ordinary. But that is to be expected as well. It is impossible for one to become a master teacher without sufficient connections to search for a good teacher to guide them. After another short exchange, Zhong Xian learned that her name was Xianxia and that she had just become a master teacher apprentice during the year. The reason why she spoke so much to him was that they were fellow apprentices and that she thought that they should look out for one another. The question symposium will be carried out tomorrow afternoon at the Master Teacher Pavilion. If you wish to take the Master Teacher examination, you should take a look. I'll be leaving now, Farewell. After speaking for a short while longer, Xiaoxiao realized that this apprentice known as Zhong Xian seemed to be completely ignorant of the master-teacher examination. As such, she lost her interest to chat with him. In her opinion, it would be several decades before he would be eligible to take the master-teacher examination, and they were of two completely different standards. I should first find a restaurant to dine in before looking for lodging. Bidding the lady farewell, Zhong Xian stretched his back lazily. He had already obtained a clear idea of the master-teacher pavilion's location, and it was getting late. Furthermore, after 7 consecutive days of consuming dry rations on the back of the howling firmament beast, Zhong Xian had gotten sick of that food. After eating his dinner, just as Zhong Xian was about to look for an inn to settle in, he saw a massive building before him. On the plaque hung above its entrance were 2 majestic words which felt vigorous and soulful, as if it would soar out from the board at any time. Painter Guild. Recognizing the words on it, Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. The painter, just like apothecary, is an occupation of the 9 paths, and there is a guild to oversee its affairs. However, Xianxia Kingdom was too small and remote, so it didn't possess the qualifications to build a branch. Zhong Xian didn't expect to see the Painter Guild right after entering Qianwu Royal City. I should take a look. Of the numerous skills that Zhong Xian possessed, after pill forging and beast taming, the one he was the most skilled at was painting, and he was capable of even producing a painting of the 5th level. Since he managed to chance on the guild, it was a good chance for him to take the examination to become an official painter. After all, he had only acquired the emblems of a 2-star beast tamer and 1-star apothecary at the moment, and this looked rather plain. As for Poison Master, even though his mastery in poison had also reached the level of a 2-star, he was in disguise as the envoy's senior granduncle then, so it was impossible for him to take the Poison Master examination. Naturally, he didn't manage to obtain the corresponding emblem. But even if he were to have successfully acquired it, given how hostile the other occupations were toward Poison Masters, he wouldn't dare to take it out either. As such thoughts flashed through his mind, Zhong Xian stepped into the Painter Guild. As expected of the Painter Guild, its vast hall was arranged in an orderly and artistic manner, making one feel as though he has stepped into a painting. Slowly walking inward, Zhong Xian felt as if he were walking leisurely in the midst of a book, and an indescribable sensation of comfort embraced him. Hung on the walls around him were all kinds of art pieces, and every single one of them was astonishingly lifelike, having reached the 1st level of painting's reality depiction. A painter has to grasp the first 4 realms of a painting: reality depiction, spiritual canvas, infused intentions, and breathtaking verisimilitude before he can be qualified as a 1-star. Even though a painting of the 1st level sounds unexceptional, several years of effort is required before one can produce such a painting. Without sufficient experience and comprehension, it is no simple task to depict a scenery realistically. Those who are capable of drawing these paintings are at minimum apprentice painters. Gongzi, may I know what kind of painting you are looking for? I can bring you around. As Zhong Xian slowly browsed through the paintings, a green-robed attendant suddenly walked up to him politely. Are these paintings for sale? Zhong Xian pointed to those pieces hung on the wall. Indeed. Isn't Gongzi here to buy a painting? The attendant nodded. If the Painter Guild doesn't sell paintings, where else can one buy them? Oh. After giving the matter some thought, Zhong Xian felt embarrassed for asking this question. It was similar to how the Apothecary Guild sold pills. It was absurd to think that the Painter Guild doesn't sell paintings. Nodding his head, Zhong Xian asked, "These are all paintings of the 1st level. Are there any higher level paintings? Please follow me upstairs." In the guild, the paintings on the 1st floor are mainly those of the 1st level, the paintings on the 2nd floor are mainly those of the 2nd level, and so on. Gongzi, what level of painting are you interested in buying? I'll bring you up right now. The attendant's eyes lit up. The higher the level of the painting, the more expensive it was. As an attendant, he received a commission based on the price of the painting sold. The more expensive the painting Zhong Xian bought, the more money the attendant would earn. Is there? Just as he was about to ask if there was any painting of the 5th level for him to look through, he saw a crowd charge forward. Hurry up, Jimo Gongzi is out. He passed the 1-star painter examination. Indeed. The examination has just ended, and in order to thank the crowd for their support, He intends to conduct an open painting, and will auction the finished art piece on the spot.
Open painting? Great. I will get his painting for sure.
People in the crowd started to discuss among themselves. They were mostly young ladies and, walking slightly forward, Xianxia could see a few middle-aged men. Judging by the clothes on them, they were likely to possess great wealth.
Jimo Gongzi, painting.
Xianxia looked at them contemptuously. Jimo is the young master of the capital's Ji clan. Despite just being in his teens, he is already an official painter of the guild. Upon speaking of Jimo Gongzi, the attendant's face grew red in agitation as well. Gongzi, if you intend to purchase a painting, you should take a look at the open painting too. If you can buy young Master Ji's painting, you will have made your trip here worth it.
Chapter 288. Jimo Gongzio? Let's go over then.
Since Xianxia was free, he decided to take the opportunity to learn more about how the painter examination was conducted. Thus, he followed behind the green-robed attendant into the crowd. Right at the front, before a dark green table lined against the wall, an 18 or 19-year-old youngster, dressed in white, was sitting on a wooden chair, and his eyes were tightly closed.
Jimo Gongzi, I love you. I want to bear your babies. How shameless can you get? Ji Gongzi is mine. Whoever who dares to vie with me, I'll rip off her clothes.
Young mistress, a beautiful lady over there is intent on vying with you. Go and rip off her clothes, we'll cheer you on from here. Even though Jimo Gongzi's eyes were still tightly shut, many ladies in the surroundings had already gone into a frenzy. Ji Gongzi may be young, but is extremely gentle toward ladies. More importantly, he has a suave appearance. Thus, he became the idol of ladies in the capital. The green-robed attendant explained with a hushed voice.
Xianxia nodded.
Turning to look at Jimo Gongzi, his skin was indeed fair and smooth, and he had a dashing face. Even though his eyes were closed, his lips were slightly curled upward and vaguely, it seemed as if he was smiling. Xianxia could understand why he was able to win the fancy of these ladies. Talented, capable, a good background, and most importantly, he was dashing. It was no wonder why so many ladies went insane for him.
What is he doing?
Seeing the other party seated with his eyes shut, ignoring the ruckus around him, Xianxia inquired. Jimo Gongzi is about to paint. He is probably calming his brain and adjusting his mental state.
The green-robed fellow said. Adjusting his state of mind?
Here.
Xianxia was puzzled. It was just a painting.
Xianxia would usually grab a brush and start on his work right away. Is there a need to adjust any state of mind? Besides, even if he truly needs to adjust his state of mind, he should have gone somewhere quiet and peaceful. With so many people causing a huge ruckus here, how in the world does he expect to adjust his state of mind? Ji Gongzi possesses incredible talents, having reached the level of a master painter before even reaching 20. Every single action that he makes has its own profound purpose. This isn't something a countryside bumpkin like you can comprehend. Before the green-robed attendant could reply, a lady turned around and glared at Xianxia furiously.
Indeed, where did this amateur come from?
Scram aside, don't taint Ji Gongzi's painting.
Another lady harumphed angrily.
Hualala. The ladies in the surroundings turned to glare at Xianxia with disdainful eyes.
Ah!
Not expecting to meet with so much hostility just by raising a simple doubt, Xianxia became speechless. A lot of civilians in Qianwu Kingdom are interested in painting, thus raising the status of painters here greatly. Ji Gongzi, as one of the most talented painters of the younger generation, has countless fans. Thus, it is best for you not to say anything here. Otherwise, you might really drown from the criticisms of his die-hard fans. With a bitter smile, the green-robed attendant whispered to him. Xianxia nodded. Just as he was about to speak, Ji Gongzi abrupt opened his eyes and stood up. Look, Ji Gongzi is about to begin painting. I wonder what level of painting will he create.
Does it have to be said?
Ji Gongzi is an official painter, his works are definitely at least of the second level. Upon seeing Ji Gongzi move, those who were glaring at Xianxia previously turned to look forward immediately, their eyes twinkling with adoration. The first four realms of painting are reality depiction, spiritual canvas, infused intentions, and breathtaking verisimilitude. Just like in the case of Lu Chen and Yuanyu, official painters, otherwise known as master painters, are capable of producing a painting of the second level or third level with ease. As for whether the painting can reach breathtaking verisimilitude, it would depend on his luck and condition. Me, Ji Mo, will now display my humble skills. Ji Mo stood before the table, and with a flick of his wrist, a Chinese fan appeared in his hand. Gently fanning himself twice, his black hair and white robe danced along with the light breeze. The painting that I create will be sold on the spot. However, I will not claim a single cent of the money, and instead, I'll be using it to build a painting hall. I'll invite apprentice painters to conduct lessons there so as to propagate the comprehension and passion for painting. As expected of Ji Gongzi, he truly doesn't care for material wealth. A character befitting of a master painter. I am impressed. Hearing his words, the crowd burst into commotion once more. Numerous ladies screamed fanatically. This fellow sure knows how to win the hearts. Zhong Xian shook his head. This Ji Mo Gongzi might be young, but he was obviously skilled in politics, knowing how to attract attention. That was similar to the charity auctions conducted by celebrities in his previous life. In plain honesty, they were just gimmicks. If he truly wanted to build a painter hall and propagate the passion and understanding of painting, he could have done so silently. There was no need for him to create such a huge ruckus. More importantly, it was already late autumn, and not to mention, night time. It felt cold just to stand on the spot, and yet he was fanning himself. Silence. Shutting his fan, Ji Mo Gongzi gestured grandly. All right, not to waste everyone's time, I shall begin painting now. I hope that everyone can remain silent while I am at work. Hearing his words, the screaming crowd quietened down all of a sudden. Smiling lightly, Ji Mo Gongzi flung his sleeves and picked up a brush. After opening a xian paper on the table, Ji Mo struck the table lightly with his left hand, and under the tremor of his Xianxia, a droplet of ink leaped into the air from the ink slab and landed precisely on the tip of his brush. Then, with a grand movement of his right hand, the brush fell on the surface of the paper. The brush flew around the paper gracefully, creating an imposing sight. Hualala! The brush danced about on the paper, reminiscent of a fish swimming freely in a pond, accompanying the passing of time, and the painting gradually took shape. It was a painting of a mountain and a stream. On the tall and towering mountain was a combination of mystical forests and mysterious boulders, divided by a stream that flowed through them. Ding-dang, one could almost hear the sound of the stream striking the surface of the boulder, and the leaves were dancing toward a certain direction, as though a gentle breeze was caressing them. This is a painting of the second level. With a single glance, Zhong Xian nodded his head silently in approval. The Heaven's Path painting art which Zhong Xian compiled using the books in Master Lu Chen's house had given him a profound understanding of paintings. Even without the library of Heaven's Path, Zhong Xian was capable of appraising paintings to a certain standard. This mountain stream painting was detailed, allowing people to feel as if it were a true mountain right before them. There was a spiritual touch to the painting which gave it bizarre but wonderful aesthetics. This was proof that it has reached the level of spiritual canvas. However, even though the contents were outstanding, the mountain and stream were lacking artistic conception and a personal touch. In other words, it did not reach the level of infused intentions. It is a pity. If he wasn't overly focused on showing off his skills, and instead had carved out his painting slowly and calmly, he might have been able to achieve the level of infused intentions. Zhong Xian sighed after a moment. Even though this Ji Mo Gongzi was a braggart, his painting fundamentals were in place. Logically speaking, as long as he were to paint calmly, producing a painting of the third level shouldn't be a problem. However, his obsession with graceful and exaggerated movements had caused him to neglect the essence of the painting. Thus, this painting had only managed to reach spiritual canvas pinnacle, just a small step away from infused intentions. Even though Zhong Xian thought that it was a pity, he didn't voice out his thoughts. He was only here to see how the master painter examination was conducted, and he wasn't related to this Ji Mo Gongzi in any way. Besides, he had been criticized by the crowd just moments ago for expressing his doubts on Ji Mo's actions, and he didn't want to be berated by this bunch of women before him. Soon, The painting was completed. Ji Mo Gongzi threw the brush into the brush holder and hung the painting on the wall. This is a painting that has reached the second-level pinnacle, and it is called Breeze by the Mountain and Stream. The auction will start now. The starting price is 1 million gold coins, and every raise must be 100,000 gold coins at the minimum. At which, the edges of Li Ji Gongzi's lips shot up, and a mesmerizing smile appeared on his face. Waving the fan in his hands, he brought out the disposition of a dashing scholar. I'll accompany anyone who manages to purchase this painting for dinner, for free. Accompany for dinner? This painting is mine. Don't compete with me, I'll offer 1,100,000. You wish to buy Ji Mo Gongzi's painting for 1,100,000? Stop joking. 1,300,000. I offer 2 million. Upon hearing the additional service that came with the painting, the lady's eyes reddened with excitement immediately. As they competed wildly against one another, the price soared rapidly. 2,400,000. Seeing the price reach 2 million in the blink of an eye, Xianxia was flabbergasted. He sold the fifth-level painting he created to Lu Chen, Huang Yu, and the others for merely 2 million each, and this mediocre second-level painting has exceeded that sum. This is way too damned. That. How much is a painting of the fifth level, spirit creation, worth? Feeling dismayed, Xianxia could not help but ask the attendant beside him. A painting of the fifth level? That would be a treasure left behind by a 2-star Grandmaster painter. Furthermore, even such a painter wouldn't be able to produce a fifth-level painting as when he pleases. It depends heavily on his condition and luck. A painting of that level will easily become the treasure of our painter guild, and one can say that it is priceless. The green-robed attendant hesitated for a moment before answering. Priceless. Xianxia's body swayed violently. Indeed. If one has no choice but to assign it a price, this starting price would likely be at minimum 10 million gold coins. As for how high it can rise, I can't give a concrete answer to that. However, half a year ago, an auction for a painting of the fifth level was conducted here, and the final price was 34 million gold coins. The green-robed attendant replied. Xianxia's mouth twitched and he was on the verge of tears. 34 million for a single painting, and he sold 4 of it at 2 million each. Why is the world be so cruel to him? The Painter Guild has been established in the capital for less than 30 years, and it was only from then that the price of paintings had been on the rise. If it was 30 years ago, when no one held paintings in high regard, a painting of the fifth level would only be worth 1 or 2 million. The attendant said. If it were any higher than that, no one would be willing to spend their money. 1 or 2 million, 30 years ago. Xianxia shook. That's right. The attendant nodded. After hearing the other party's verification, Xianxia finally recovered, and his aching heart was soothed. Qianxian Kingdom was remote and there wasn't the presence of a painter guild. It seemed that what Huang Yu and the others reported to him was the 30-year historical price, and 2 million, could already be considered as a huge sum for a painting of the fifth level then. Does Gongzi want to buy a painting of the fifth level? The green-robed attendant looked at him. Only our guild leader is capable of drawing a painting of the fifth level, but he had gone out half a month ago in search of inspiration and isn't back yet. I'm just making a casual inquiry. Suppressing his vexation, Xianxia shook his head. That. Staring at Xianxia, the attendant asked, then, Gongzi, why don't you buy Ji Mo Gongzi's Breeze by the Mountain and Stream? It is second-level pinnacle and, not to mention, Ji Gongzi's work. Its value will definitely rocket in the future. Forget it. Xianxia shook his head. I'm not here to buy paintings. Besides, it's just a painting of the second level. I'm not interested in it. Just a painting of the second level? How arrogant. Before the green-robed attendant could reply to Xianxia's words, a cold harumph sounded. Lifting his head, Xianxia saw Ji Mo Gongzi staring coldly at him. Hm. Xianxia didn't expect the other party to hear his words when he had already spoken so softly. Xianxia replied with embarrassment, I apologize, I was just speaking casually, so please do not be offended by my words. Every painting is created painstakingly, and saying such words before a painter is indeed inappropriate. HMH, do you think this can be settled with just an apology? Mo Gongzi flung his sleeves, and his eyebrows shot up. This action of interrupting the auction and treating my painting with contempt, you're insulting the occupation and belittling all official painters. Then, what do you think I should do? Xianxia had only made a casual comment and had already apologized for his disrespect. Yet, the other party went on and claimed that he was insulting the occupation and him. Feeling helpless, Xianxia shook his head. Simple, by my painting at 5 million gold coins. Placing his hands behind his back, Mo Gongzi glanced at him impassively. Don't worry, I won't take a single cent of that money. I'll donate all of it to build the painter hall so you can consider it as atonement for your mistake. 5 million gold coins. Xianxia was stunned. He had merely come to take a look, making a comment in passing, but the other party actually wanted to force a deal upon him. What a joke. There are so many people who worship you present, can't you get them to buy it for you? Why? Are you unwilling to buy it? Mo Gongzi sneered coldly. Waving his hands casually, he said, you can refuse, but you must apologize now and swear not to step into the guild ever again. Our painter guild doesn't welcome people like you. Never step into the guild ever again. Xianxia was speechless. Kindness doesn't beget kindness. Other people will simply take advantage of you. It was just a casual comment and he had already made an apology, yet the other party refused to let the matter go. I can apologize, and never stepping into the painter guild is fine by me as well. In fact, I can even buy your painting for 5 million gold coins. However, your painting has to be worth that price first. Xianxia shook his head. Do you think that this toy, which any apprentice painter can create, is worthy of that price? Xian paper GT, a kind of high-quality paper. Chapter 289. Painting through a savage beast 3-in-1. After the uproar that Xianxia created with the ladies, the crowd had cleared the area around him, causing him and the attendant to stand out with exceptional conspicuity. While everyone was busy placing their bids, the two of them were chatting incessantly about something else, and upon witnessing this, Mo Gongzi felt displeased and disrespected. Then, when he listened carefully to their conversation, it turned out that they were belittling his work. How could he tolerate this? Thus, he bellowed at them immediately. They were clearly challenging his prestige and authority. He had thought that the other party would apologize immediately upon being questioned like that, but contrary to his expectations, the other party spoke such words in return. A toy which any apprentice painter can create. Becoming infuriated, his face turned crimson red immediately. What did you say? Clenching his fists tightly, a surge of power gushed out from him, causing the air in the surroundings to howl. He was actually a Pishua realm expert. To be able to attain Pishua realm below 20 years of age, it seemed that this Mo Gongzi's talent in cultivation was no way inferior to his flair for painting. The green-robed attendant didn't expect Xianxia to say such words, and his face paled immediately. Putting aside the fact that the Ji clan was one of the 3 great clans in the capital, this Mo Gongzi himself was a highly respected one-star painter with incredible rallying abilities. Provoking him like that, wasn't that equivalent to courting death? Angering the other party and receiving a beating were no big deals, but it was highly likely that Xianxia would be banned from the painter guild. If so, he wouldn't be able to buy a single painting no matter how much money he offered. Gongzi, calm down. It's best that you apologize and give in. He tugged on the clothes of the young man beside him involuntarily and sent a telepathic message. After which, the young man before him nodded and spoke. Oh, it's my mistake to say that any apprentice painter can create such a painting. That's more like it. Hearing Xianxia admit his mistake, the attendant was just about to heave a sigh of relief when he heard the second half of his words. His eyes shot upward and he nearly passed out from shock. This is an insult to apprentice painters. Given the standard of this painting, even a random savage beast is able to do better than that. 5 million, you say? I won't even buy it for 5 gold coins. Xianxia uttered. He didn't wish to cause trouble, but that didn't mean that he would allow anyone to climb all over his head. Trying to take advantage of me? You must be joking. It's already good enough that I'm not trying to take advantage of you. While the other party was drawing, without using the library of Heaven's Path, he was able to see 7 to 8 flaws with just his own judgment. He wouldn't want this mediocre drawing even if the other party were to give it to him for free. To pay for it. You must be pulling my leg. Savage beast. 5 gold coins? Xianxia spoke calmly and the crowd became tongue-tied, beginning to stare at him as if they were looking at a monster. To insult a painter right at home in the Painter Guild, where did you get such confidence? You! Jimo Gongzi was so angry that he nearly vomited blood. Even a random savage beast would be able to do better than him. Won't buy it even for 5 gold coins. The other party was clearly doubting his professionalism. All right, there's nothing much to see about this clown. Let's go up and take a look at the other paintings. Disregarding the infuriated Jimo, Xianxia turned around impassively and prepared to leave. Even though he had just arrived at Qianwu Kingdom and didn't possess any standing in the capital, he was someone who was about to take the Master Teacher examination and should carry a befitting disposition. If the other party were to dare to say such words to him after he becomes a Master Teacher, he would lash him to death on the spot instead of wasting any breath on him. This is the authority and power unique to a Master Teacher. Master Teachers mustn't be sullied, and those who dare to desecrate one has to die. He was just a boastful painter and yet he dared to force a sale upon him. Xianxia was already behaving very respectfully to him, having merely criticized his piece. Hold it right there. Seeing how that fellow intended to leave straight after humiliating him, Jimo Gongzi's face warped in anger and he almost flew into a rage. However, even though he was infuriated, he didn't lose his rationality. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his anger and stared at Xianxia coldly. Since you spoke so confidently, you must be rather confident in your knowledge of painting. Then, do you dare to compete with me? Compete? That's right. We'll start painting simultaneously and after we're done, we'll find someone to appraise our work. The person whose painting is superior and attains the higher level wins. The losing side will have to kneel down and apologize, and swear to never enter the Painter Guild ever again. Jimo Gongzi's eyes were filled savagery. How about it, do you dare to take on the challenge? Start painting simultaneously? Find someone to appraise our work? Are you certain? Seeing how confident the other party was, Xianxia shook his head. He didn't mind competing with the other party. In any case, he had nothing else to do today apart from exploring the Painter Guild and, from the looks of it, the other party wouldn't let this matter slip if he were to reject his challenge. Why? Do you not dare to take me on? Jimo Gongzi sneered. That's not it, it's just that. Placing his hands behind his back, Xianxia looked at him with a helpless expression. I'm afraid that, you'll cry. Gudong. Everyone fell to the ground, the entire room falling into silence. Huala. Then, the entire room burst into an uproar. What in the world are you bragging about? Jimo Gongzi is an official painter. How dare a nobody like you spout such arrogant words? Compete with him. Let him know the capability of a true master painter. The ladies present stared at Xianxia furiously. With arms akimbo, each and every one of them felt a strong urge to tear Xianxia into pieces. We've seen arrogant people, but we've never seen such an arrogant person. You dare say that Jimo Gongzi will cry? Do you know who he is? He is the first person in Qianwu Royal City to pass the painter examination before having reached 20 years of age, a person who possesses unparalleled talent in painting. Afraid that he will cry? Who do you think you are? The guild leader of the Painter Guild? You! Jimo Gongzi's body swayed, and blood nearly burst forth from his mouth. The other party's words were way too vicious. He knew that the more he quarreled with the other party, the more likely he would die from anger. Thus, he waved his hands and said, "Then let's not waste any time then, let our skills do the speaking." After which, as if he was afraid that the other party might back out, he turned around and issued instructions to an attendant behind him immediately. The attendant then turned around and left, returning with 2 elders in no time. This is Vice Guild Leader Cheng and Vice Guild Leader Wu. They are 2-star Grandmaster painters, so there shouldn't be a problem having them act as the judges, right? Hearing that the two were vice guild leaders, Xianxia directed his attention to them immediately. These two seemed to be around Master Lu Chen's age, and snowy beards hung on their chins. Perhaps due to years of immersion in painting, both of them carried unique and refined dispositions. I'm fine with it. It made no difference to Xianxia whoever the judge was. Thus, he nodded to indicate his approval. Do the two of you wish to compete? Walking forward, Vice Guild Leader Cheng asked with a frown. The attendant had explained to them about the conflict on their way. Here a youngster of unknown background suddenly appeared and spoke arrogantly before Ji Mo, resulting in a conflict between them. The two Vice Guild leaders were curious to see how that youngster could be so confident. Yes. Ji Mo Gongzi bowed. May I ask from whom did you learn painting? Vice Guild Leader Cheng turned to Xianxia and asked. I am acquainted with master and grandmaster painters in the 13 surrounding kingdoms, so I might just happen to know your teacher. I merely possess an interest in painting, I do not have a teacher. Xianxia said. His understanding of painting came from books, so it was true that he did not have a teacher. An interest. Do not have a teacher. Both Vice Guild Leader Cheng and Vice Guild Leader Wu exchanged gazes, and they felt baffled at the situation. Even though painting ranked among the lowest in the 9 upper paths, it was impossible to learn true skills without guidance from a teacher. The other party dares to compete with a 1-star painter just because he is somewhat interested in painting? Is he unaware of a master painter's capabilities, or did his arrogance blind his rationality? Painting is an elegant art, and such a contest would be a breach of decorum. If the both of you have any arguments, it would be best to settle it privately. There's no need to settle it through a competition. After hesitating for a moment, Vice Guild Leader Wu tried to persuade the duo. Painting is a refined activity, and using it for a competition is unbefitting of a refined painter. I beseech the two grandmasters to persuade us no further. Academics get to know each other through literature. On top of that, I believe that there's a need to uphold our pride as painters. This fellow dared to insult painting. If I do not have a showdown with him today, I will not be able to lying down. Before Xianxia could speak, Ji Mo Gongzi had already spoken up. This fellow claimed that even apprentice painters and savage beasts could do better than him. If he didn't teach him a lesson today, his reputation would fall to the gutters, and he would be too embarrassed to meet anyone in the future. Seeing that Ji Mo was adamant on the matter, the two Vice Guild leaders turned to Xianxia, only to see him nod his head casually. If he wishes to compete, so be it. All right then. Seeing that both parties had agreed to the competition and that it was impossible to persuade them otherwise, the two Vice Guild leaders could only agree to the matter. Since the both of you have decided to compete with one another, we'll serve as judges then. The rules are simple. The time limit is 2 hours, and the person whose painting is at the higher level will be declared victorious. If both paintings are of the same level, the one who took the least time will be the winner. There's nothing such as superior or inferior in art, and everyone has different tastes and interest. Thus, it is impossible to decide which artwork is superior or inferior. However, since there were different levels to painting, they could use it as a benchmark to assess their painting skills objectively. Let's begin. With the rules set and no disagreements from both parties involved in the competition, a few apprentice painters began to lay out 2 tables with brushes, ink slabs, and paper. There are no restrictions to the topic. Feel free to paint anything you desire to. Seeing that the both of them had taken their positions, Vice Guild Leader Wu said, Yes. Ji Mo Gongzi nodded his head. Since there were no restrictions, he could choose to paint what he was best at. The mountains and streams that he drew before were not what he was good at. If he were to draw what he was the most adept in, he would surely be able to produce a painting of the 3rd level. He had just become a 1-star painter and was looking for an opportunity to increase his reputation when this fellow appeared from nowhere. The idiom delivering a pillow when one is craving for a nap fitted the situation perfectly. Xianxia's appearance was simply too timely. Otherwise, Ji Mo wouldn't have gone to the extent of blowing the matter up. All right, since there aren't any objections, you may begin now. Since the duo wasn't objectionable to the rules, Vice Guild Leader Wu waved his hands, gesturing for them to start. All right. Ji Mo Gongzi harumphed coldly. With a swift movement, he picked up the brush, dipped it in the ink, and began drawing. This time, in order to obtain a more convincing victory, he chose to use plenty of flamboyant techniques, winning him the loud cheers from the crowd. Do all of you think that Ji Mo Gongzi will win? Of course. Ji Gongzi is the most talented painter in the younger generation. Even the guild leader has said that it is highly possible that he will take over his position in the future. How can he possibly lose to a countryside bumpkin? That's true. Ji Gongzi has already begun drawing, but why is that countryside bumpkin still standing idly? It can't be that his words are louder than his actions and that he doesn't know how to paint at all. That may really be true. Look, he is totally motionless. Mesmerized by Ji Mo Gongzi's graceful brushstrokes, everyone had been discussing Ji Mo Gongzi excitedly, and only at this moment did they realize that the youngster he was competing against was standing motionlessly on the spot, his expression seeming to indicate a dilemma within. Is there anything wrong? Do you have any problem that you find hard to voice out? Feel free to speak. Seeing him in such a state, Vice Guild Leader Wu asked. Oh, it's like that. Xianxia scratched his head in embarrassment. I've been thinking about it. If I were to simply paint and win him like that, I would be bullying him. Since I claim that even a savage beast can paint better than him, may I ask, are there any savage beasts here? Can I borrow one to use? Rest assured, after it's done with the painting, I'll return it to you. What? He intends to use a savage beast to compete against Ji Mo Gongzi. The heck, surely I am hearing things. Everyone was dumbfounded, and they stared at the man as if he were a lunatic. Even though savage beasts possess intelligence, it is insignificant in comparison to human thoughts. As such, it is impossible for a savage beast to be capable of painting. Pitting a savage beast against an official painter in a painting contest. How is that possible? You must be pulling our legs. Even if they weren't here, being able to see and hear it in person, they would have thought that the fellow was insane. In fact, even though they were actually here in person witnessing the situation, they were doubting his sanity. While everyone was just shocked, Ji Mo Gongzi's body was already convulsing. 10,000 imaginary divine beasts flew around his head and he nearly threw his brush at the other party's face. Finding a savage beast to compete with him. The heck, do you mean that I am not worthy of being your opponent? He thought that he would be able to humiliate the other party once the results were out. But, the painting had barely started, and the other party's contempt had by now seared his skin. If that fellow were to really win with a savage beast, doesn't that mean that I am inferior to a beast? Even I win, it would only mean that I am better than a beast. The heck? Ji Mo Gongzi felt blood welling up in his mouth and that he was about to break down. Cough cough, even though savage beasts possess intelligence, they are incapable of painting. Are you certain of this? Vice Guild Leader Wu was also astonished at the youngster's request. He couldn't help but ask him once more. He had seen people request for a longer duration, better quality paper, a better standard of ink. Of all of these innumerable requests, he had never come across someone requesting for a savage beast. Are you sure this isn't a joke? Yes, I am certain. Xianxia nodded his head with a serious expression. He could easily paint a 5th-level work. If he were to take the painter examination, even if it wasn't sufficient for him to reach 3-star, he would be a 2-star pinnacle at the minimum. With such a capability, for him to compete with a young fellow who had just passed the 1-star painter examination would be akin to bullying the weak. Even if he were to win, it wouldn't be honorable. However, even after he had affirmed his request, the other party didn't make a move. Therefore, Xianxia asked, can it be that there aren't any savage beasts here? Or is looking for a savage beast too difficult to request? After all, this is the Painter Guild, not the Beast Hall. Can it be that savage beasts are difficult to find in Qianwu Royal City? Difficult. Everyone staggered. This isn't the main point at all. The main point is, how can a savage beast be capable of drawing? Arrogant. While Vice Guild Leader Wu was at a loss, Vice Guild Leader Cheng's face darkened, and he flung his sleeves angrily. He had immersed himself in painting for several decades now, and he was well aware of the difficulty of this art. To wish to outdo an official painter at painting using a savage beast? That was an incredibly arrogant thought. Initially, he thought that this would be a valiant battle between two outstanding youths, but to think that the youngster before him would be such a conceited fellow. Why not? I go out and look around. I know of a wild savage beast in the vicinity. Recognizing the persisting awkwardness, the green-robed attendant hesitated for a moment before speaking up. Go on. Xianxia gestured. Yes. The green-robed attendant rushed out immediately and in a short while, came running back with a savage beast in his embrace. Rather than a savage beast, it was more appropriate to call it an undomesticated animal. Similar to dogs and cats that households kept, it didn't possess any fighting prowess. Oblivious to the reason why it was brought here, it had a confused look on its face. Upon receiving the savage beast, Xianxia took a quick look at it. Even though he wasn't very satisfied, the competition had long begun, and there wasn't time for him to be picky. Time to try out the abilities of a poison master. With the savage beast in his embrace, Xianxia thought. As for why he dared to make such a bet with his opponent, in claiming that he would use a savage beast to create his painting, it wasn't because he was arrogant, but rather because he had aces up his sleeves. Even if a savage beast is tamed, it is impossible for it to obey exactly the thoughts of its owner. If one desires to create a painting that surpasses the second level, he cannot place his hopes on something beyond his control. One has to have absolute control over the painting process. As a 2-star beast tamer, it would have been impossible for him to control the actions of a savage beast precisely. However, after the trip to the poison hall, the situation had changed. After 10 days of studying in the poison hall, not only did Xianxia manage to cultivate the poison body, his mastery of poison had also reached the level of a 2-star poison master. More importantly, he had also gained an additional use for the Heaven's Path Xianxia. He is now able to convert it into tonic with a single thought and transform it into deadly poison with another. The Heaven's Path Xianxia happened to be the ideal tool that allows him to control movements of a savage beast precisely using just his mind. Stretching out his hands, he sent a surge of Heaven's Path Xianxia into the meridians of the savage beast that was in his embrace. Then, with a simple will, he distributed it into the various acupoints all over its body immediately. Time to start. Now that the preparations were in place, he had the savage beast roll around in the ink before casually throwing it onto the large piece of Xian paper. Is he really having the savage beast draw for him? I would like to see what kind of painting he can create. I've seen this savage beast and it does not possess any intelligence. What kind of painting can it possibly draw? Seeing that Xianxia wasn't joking and that he had soaked the savage beast in ink and had it step onto the Xian paper, the crowd burst into an uproar. To have a savage beast paint and win against an official painter? Brother, are you daydreaming, or are you just pulling a prank? Preposterous. Vice Guild leader Cheng's face steeled. Painting is a respectable and refined occupation. To actually call a savage beast splashing ink around as painting is clearly an act of provocation. He had decided to chase this fellow out the moment the competition ended. He couldn't allow the art of painting to be insulted like that. Feeling displeased within, he was glaring at Xianxia in fury when Vice Guild leader Wu's words rang beside his ear. Something is wrong. Cheng Feng, look. What's wrong? He turned around to look at his old friend, only to see him staring at the youngster's painting in bewilderment. Frowning, Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng turned his head over as well, and with a single glance, he became stupefied. How? How is this possible? The savage beast on the Xian paper hesitated for a moment before beginning to saunter on the paper, leaving behind one plum flower after another in its wake. There wasn't a specific pattern to those plum flower marks, but they went along a straight line and seemed as if they were held hanging by a formless vine. Shouldn't an unintelligent savage beast, who was splashed with ink all over, run away the moment it was released? Why would it walk on the paper slowly without the slightest repetition in its footsteps? It's a type of beast taming technique. Vice Guild leader Wu's voice sounded in his ears. That's right. Hearing his old friend's words, Cheng Feng came to a realization. Not only did the savage beast not escape or run about, it walked in a straight line on the paper. This showed that it was listening to someone's orders, and to be able to get a savage beast to obey his commands immediately. It had to be an extremely advanced beast taming technique. Can it be that this extremely young fellow is a beast tamer? However, so what if he has the ability to tame a savage beast? No matter how neat these footsteps are, it isn't a painting. Naturally, it is impossible for it to reach the level of reality depiction and, not to mention, spiritual canvas. Cheng Feng was surprised, but he shook his head nevertheless. Even though reality depiction was merely the first level of painting, countless apprentices and painting fanatics had to be locked out from its gates for several years, and sometimes even several decades before it could be achieved. So what if that youngster can control movements of a savage beast using techniques belonging to beast tamers? Savage beasts being savage beasts, it is impossible for them to devote any emotion or artistic conception to the painting. It is just like controlling a puppet. It is impossible to instill spirit into the work. You're right. Vice Guild leader nodded in agreement. He was also curious what the fellow was up to. Panda. Just as they were pondering what kind of painting the youngster would show them, the savage beast, which was advancing on the Xian paper, fell down abruptly and the ink on its body blotted an area of the paper black. Seems like we had been overthinking. Initially, the plum blossoms that the savage beast created with its footstep looked satisfactory, appearing to be a proper piece of painting. Even though Cheng Feng didn't think that the youngster could achieve much with the savage beast, it was nonetheless a novelty. However, with the fall, the entire painting was ruined immediately. That was to say, the painting had been turned into scrap. Indeed, how is it possible that a savage beast can create a painting? Cheng Feng harumphed. You're right. Vice Guild leader Wu agreed. Shaking their heads, they chose to ignore this attention-seeking fellow and turned to Jimo Gongzi instead. As expected of a genius. Even though he was infuriated just a moment ago, he hadn't allowed those emotions to interfere with his painting. With swift brushstrokes, the outline of the painting was already in sight. It was a peony that stood proudly amidst a cluster of flowers. It carried a powerful disposition which made the other flowers pale in comparison, resembling a monarch. The king of flowers is the peony, and his painting has brought out the refined and prideful nature of the peony that causes surrounding floras to bow in deference. His painting will probably attain the third level, infused intentions, the moment it is completed. Cheng Feng's eyes lit up. That's right. Jimo is indeed a promising bud. As long as we do a good job grooming him, we might have a legendary figure emerge in our guild. Vice Guild Master Wu nodded in agreement. As two-star painters, they were well versed in paintings. Although Jimo Gongzi's work had yet to be completed, they were nevertheless able to tell a thing or two just from its outline. This painting was clearly of a much higher grade than that of the breeze by the mountain and stream, the conception behind the painting being at a much higher level as well. As long as there weren't any large deviations, it would surely reach the level of infused intentions. Even if it were the most basic standard under infused intentions, to be able to create a painting of the third level despite having just become a one-star painter showed that Jimo Gongzi was indeed talented. Look, Jimo Gongzi's painting is about to be done. What a beautiful peony. I like this painting. This is too beautiful. The two Vice Guild leaders were still conversing when Jimo Gongzi had already begun the final touches on his painting. His brush flew about the Xian paper, and an alluring peony appeared before everyone's eyes. Who? Then, with a light jerk of his hands, the last stroke was completed. Voila! The moment the painting was completed, a sweet scent of flowers struck everyone's nose, as if they had stepped into a garden of flowers. A single peony stood out proudly from amidst the crowd, outshining every single other surrounding flora. This is a painting of the third level. It has reached the level of infused intentions. Incredible. I've already said so, how can Jimo Gongzi possibly lose? Most of the people present were either here to purchase paintings or were a fan of Jimo, and naturally, would have some understanding of paintings as well. They might not have been able to estimate the level of the painting when he was still working on it, but the effects that occurred upon completion allowed them to recognize it immediately. Even a one-star painter would be incapable of producing a painting of the level of infused intentions every single time he paints. It was even rarer to see one being created in a public setting and, furthermore, in a competition. I've completed my painting. Throwing his brush aside, Jimo Gongzi looked at his completed work and nodded in satisfaction. The best way to win a lady's fancy was to paint flowers. The peony was the king of the flowers, so he spent a huge effort to practice it. He might not be able to ensure that any other of his works would be able to reach the third level, but he had practiced painting this for more than 1,000 times. If he were to paint it, 9 out of 10 times, it would be a painting of infused intentions. Clearly, it didn't disappoint him this time as well, having reached the level he desired. Even some one-star painters who had immersed themselves in painting for more than a decade would find it hard to produce a painting of the third level. To have produced a painting of this level so easily despite just becoming a one-star painter, regardless of the duel's outcome, his goal of making a name for himself had already been accomplished. You acted so arrogantly just now, let's see what you are capable of painting. Harumphing coldly, Mo Ji put down his artwork and turned toward Zhong Xian. At this moment, the savage beast finally jumped off the Xian paper. Because the savage beast was soaked with excessive ink, the painting, from the plum blossom footsteps which the savage beast imprinted, to the blotch caused by its fall, was smudged heavily. Even until now, the ink had yet to dry and the entire piece was glistening with ink water. Especially for the patch which was created due to the fall earlier, because of the savage beast's tough fur, a chaotic mess was created. Is this the savage beast painting you spoke of? Ha ha! How hilarious! Jimo Gongzi nearly laughed his lower jaw off. He thought that since the other party acted so high and mighty just now, he would really be able to create some impressive painting through a savage beast. Yet, to think that this was all he was capable of. Do you call this a painting? Even random flinging of ink onto a paper would be much better than this. What nonsense is he painting? To dare to compete with Ji Gongzi, he sure is laughable. If you call this a painting, won't I be considered a painter as well? Ignorant fellow, let's see how you embarrass yourself later on. Hearing Jimo's laughter, the crowd turned their gazes to Zhong Xian, and a scornful expression appeared on their faces. Can the random spilling of ink be considered a painting? What a joke! Are you done with your painting? Lifting his hand to interrupt the crowd's discussion, Vice Guild leader Wu turned to look at Zhong Xian. I'm almost done. At this point, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. If someone were to pay careful attention, the person would notice that his body was trembling and that his face had become pale. After browsing through books on poison in the poison hall, Zhong Xian had gained the ability to convert the Heaven's Path Xianxia into tonic or poison with a single thought. He had been secretly controlling the savage beast using the Xianxia he left inside its body, making it behave as he desired on the paper. Even though it had only been 10 minutes or so, it was sufficient to wear out his spirit, sending him into a state of weakness. Seems like my cultivation is still too weak. Zhong Xian lamented. Taking a deep breath, he started to pump his Xianxia to rejuvenate his body. He had been converting the Xianxia he deposited in the savage beast into either poison or tonic to stimulate its acupoints, so as to induce the savage beast to act the way he intended. Even though it sounded simple, it had a high requirement on one's soul depth. If not for Zhong Xian's soul depth exceeding 5.0, it would have been an impossible task. But more importantly, the savage beast was of an extremely low tier, making it easy to manipulate. If it were any stronger savage beast, given Zhong Xian's current cultivation, it would have been an impossible task to manipulate them. Almost done. Disappointment surfaced on Vice Guild leader Wu's face. He was wondering what formidable painting the youngster could create, but to think that this would just be it. Alright, since Jimo's painting is completed, and this youngster's painting is roughly done, let's just announce the results right away. Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng said. Alright. Vice Guild leader Wu nodded. Pointing to Jimo Gongzi's work, he appraised, Painter Ji's peony creates ripples in the surrounding spiritual energy and it has a deep artistic conception. Undoubtedly, it has reached the third level of painting, infused intentions. After which, he turned to Zhong Xian's work and said, as for this painting, I am unable to understand its meaning. In my opinion, it is nothing at all. After hesitating for a moment, Vice Guild leader Wu continued, thus, my verdict is that, it is Painter Ji's victory. I share the same opinion as Vice Guild leader Wu. Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng nodded in agreement. I've won. Hearing the results from the judges, Mo Gongzi turned to Zhong Xian and sneered, "Since the results are out, are you going to kneel down and then scram on your own 2 feet, or do you want me to break your legs before throwing you out of the Painter Guild?" Before the competition, they had decided to have the loser kneel down and apologize to the other party before leaving the Painter Guild, never to return. Now that Zhong Xian had lost, how could he simply allow this matter to slip by? Seeing the savage expression on Mo's face as he pressurized Zhong Xian, the 2 Vice Guild leaders glanced at each another. Initially, they had intended to mediate between the two, but eventually, they simply shook their heads and chose to stay out of this matter. This foreign lad had shown blatant disrespect for painting by having a savage beast paint in his stead, and the both of them thought that he should be taught a lesson. Otherwise, wouldn't it signify there are no consequences for desecrating the Painter Guild? You've made a verdict just like that. After resting for a moment, Zhong Xian finally regained some strength. Upon hearing Mo Gongzi's gleeful words, he lifted his head. Why? Do you refuse to acknowledge the verdict by the 2 Vice Guild leaders? Mo harumphed coldly. The 2 Vice Guild leaders are 2-star painters and I believe in their eye for painting. Just that. I had only mentioned that my work was almost done. I have never said that it was done. Zhong Xian shook his head. Are you claiming that your work is incomplete? What do you want to do then? Do you intend to lift your brush and continue painting? Mo Gongzi was taken aback. Since I said that this is a savage beast painting, naturally, I won't use my brush. Just that, this painting is still lacking one final step. Zhong Xian smiled. One final step. The entire crowd was startled. The painting that you created through the savage beast is such rubbish. Do you think that adding some final touches will make any difference? Under the situation that you aren't going to use the brush, do you think that the conclusion can really be changed? I think that he's just unwilling to admit defeat. To be bragging despite the fact that he has lost, how can there be such a person in the world? Shameless. Everyone began to clamor and looks of disgust fell on Zhong Xian from all around. Weren't you behaving very arrogantly? You're already nearing your end. Why are you still putting on an act? Even Vice Guild leader Cheng and Vice Guild leader Wu were perplexed. It is just a layer of ink water on top of the paper. Without using a brush, is there really a way to turn it into a painting? You say that there's a final step before its completion. Fine, let's see what you have to say after this then. Mo Gongzi laughed coldly. All right, I'll start then. Disregarding the commotion around him, Zhong Xian walked up to the painting, grabbed the Xian paper by the corner and gave it a gentle shake. Hualala! The ink water on the surface of the painting flowed down, dyeing the entire painting. All right, I've completed my final step. Placing the Xian paper back on the table casually, Zhong Xian smiled. That's all. Everyone was taken aback. They thought that the youngster's final step would be some incredible move, but to think that it would be just a gentle shake. For a moment, they were completely dumbfounded. Wait, something's not right. Look. Just as they were wondering what that fellow was up to, a person from the crowd suddenly shouted. Upon hearing the voice, Vice Guild leader Cheng and Vice Guild leader Wu turned to look at the Xian paper. Instantly, their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably, with their faces turning pale and their eyes widening. A moment later, words of disbelief escaped through their mouth. How is this possible? Chapter 290, A Draw? With a gentle shake from Zhong Xian, the ink on the Xian paper flowed down. The many footsteps left behind by the savage beast were linked together by a dark stroke, forming a painting of haughty and unyielding plum blossoms. The portion where the ink flowed through formed a black dry tree bark, on which plum blossoms bloomed sporadically. Looking rather desolate from afar, one could feel bone-chilling intent from the painting, as if the bitter winter had struck. The location where the savage beast fell formed 2 glaring boulders, and the marks left behind by its fur formed ridges of differing depths on the surface of the boulder. Plum blossoms grew from the crevices within the boulders, standing proudly in the frigid weather. Mo Gongzi made use of a field of flowers to accentuate the nobility of the peony. On the other hand, These plum blossoms didn't have any other flowers to compare to, but one couldn't help but sense its haughtiness, with nothing that dared to vie with it, that there was no one that did not fear to stand beside it. Even without the intention to vie for supremacy, it was able to surpass the radiance of all other flowers. Upon seeing this flower, one could almost see the painter standing lonely by the edge of the world. So what if they disregard me? So what if they don't understand me? All I desire is to stand proud and remain true to my conscience. Why am I crying? I feel as though I saw a man uncomprehended by the world, but even so, he continued to step forward bravely, without the slightest intention to retreat. Is this, the third level of painting, infused intentions? That must be it. Otherwise, it is impossible for our emotions to resonate with it with just a single glance. The surroundings fell silent. In that moment, many people's emotions were influenced by the desolate mood in the painting, and their eyes reddened in agitation. A painting with high artistic conception is able to influence the state of mind in its viewers. Clearly, this painting is one such masterpiece. A painting that was drawn by a savage beast has reached the third level, infused intentions. Seeing the crowd being influenced by the desolate beauty of the winter plum blossoms, Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng's mouth quivered, and his body trembled. Since others were able to tell the level of the painting, naturally, he did so quickly. With just a shake of the painting, the other party was able to turn a nothing into a masterpiece. Not only was the spirit of the painting overwhelming, its artistic conception shone through in an instant. Even they, as two star painters, would need a long period of preparation before they can create a painting of such level. Yet, for a savage beast to create such a painting by walking a few steps, rolling about, followed by a mere shake, even though it happened right before their eyes, they nevertheless couldn't help but suspect that it was a dream. It was inconceivable. The crux to the painting is that final shake. Vice Guild leader Wu contemplated for a moment before saying, how much ink is left on the Xian paper, how one should shake it, and how much force should one use. One has to take all of these into account to determine the flow of the ink to form the tree branch to finish the painting. One has to imprint and remember all of these details perfectly into mind before one can create this painting. Even the slightest error could spell failure. Indeed, it may seem simple, but it is actually a profound movement. With different ink and paper, the effects would be different. To be able to reach such a state with a mere shake, his eye of discernment and mastery of painting. Even I would be unable to do it. Even though he was reluctant to admit it, Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng nodded in agreement. Previously, it was the savage beast who was in charge of painting. The youngster didn't do anything at all. However, the most important part of the painting was the final shake. It was just like adding the eyes to a painted dragon with the slightest error. The result would be completely different. If not for Zhong Xian's perfect control over the final shake, this painting of the third level would be nothing at all. And for him to find the ideal strength and method to shake off the ink on the painting. This meant that he had absolute control over the painting. He knew what the product would be, and what level it would reach. This required a profound understanding of painting. For one to picture what the complete painting would be like down to the minor details. Even their guild leader, a 3-star painter, would be incapable of such a feat. This, impossible. Upon witnessing the stalk of plum blossoms appear with a shake, Ji Mo Gongzi, who was gleefully waiting for Zhong Xian to make a fool of himself, staggered backward in shock. His face paled and looked as if he were going insane. The other party had just randomly dipped a savage beast into a pool of ink and threw it on a Xian paper, and it became a painting of the third level. When did a painting of the third level become so easy to create? He had worked so hard, to the point that he almost vomited blood, just so that he could refine his painting to reach this level. Yet, the other party easily. It can't be that my talents are inferior to a savage beast? The green-robed attendant who had brought Zhong Xian in was also yanking at his ears. If not for the inappropriate occasion, he would have gone on a rampage by now. As an attendant of the Painter Guild, he earned a mere several thousand gold coins a month, and even at best, his wages would only reach 10,000. Yet, the other party was able to create a painting which was worth several million just by throwing a savage beast on a paper. The heck? Why was he working so hard then? If he were to capture the savage beast to draw for him, wouldn't he have long become a millionaire? The numerous apprentices who carried the tables before also felt tears welling up in their eyes. Of them, there were those who had spent more than a decade on painting, but even so, their painting could only reach the level of reality depiction at best. Spiritual canvas and infused intentions were way out of their reach, and they didn't dare to think about it. Seeing a savage beast produce a better painting that they could, in that instant, they felt that all of their hard work in the past few years had been completely useless. It was already a miracle that they didn't break down on the spot. The two Vice Guild leaders, may I know whether it is my victory or my loss with this painting? Seeing the painting take the shape as he had planned, Xianxia turned to the two elders with a smile. It was just as the two Vice Guild leaders thought. The crux to the painting was his final shake. Even if he was able to control the savage beast perfectly, how could this create a painting of the third level? In order to turn the ink-filled paper into a complete painting with his final shake, he had to make use of the ability of the Library of Heaven's Path to avoid all mistakes. Since there were no mistakes in his movements, it had to be correct. The timing, the strength, the shaking method, grasping the paper, all of these had to be paid attention to. A single error would cause the entire painting to fall apart. It was fortunate that he succeeded. The two Vice Guild leaders glanced at one another. Your Winter Plum Blossoms painting and Painter G's Peony painting have both reached the third level. Even though the two paintings are of completely different style, they are both on the same level. Thus, I announce that. Hesitating for a moment, Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng declared, "It is a draw." Draw. Xianxia shook his head, although he had expected such a situation. In terms of quality, his painting was clearly of a much higher standard than Ji Mogong's Peony painting. However, as their competition had a wager at stake, and the latter would be a future elite of the Painter Guild if he were declared to be the loser, wouldn't that mean that he has to kneel down, apologize, and leave the guild for good? If that really happened, they would have to lose a valuable talent. Declaring that it was a draw could avoid offending any of the two parties. In a sense, it was the perfect conclusion. Of course, this Ji Mogongzi wouldn't appear as dashing as he was before. Even though it was a draw, it was with a savage beast. In other words, he was no different from a beast. No matter where he went, people would definitely be gossiping about him. Even so, Xianxia was indifferent to his plight. The other party had it coming. A draw. To think that it would be a draw. This is for the best. That's right, it's best not to sully the harmonious spirit among fellow painters. Hearing the verdict, the crowd broke into a commotion. That's good. The two of you are genius painters, so you both should try to get along. After the declaration, Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng smiled in an attempt to mediate the conflict. However, Ji Mogongzi took a deep breath and stepped forward. Vice Guild leaders, hold it for a moment. The crowd immediately turned to look at him. Everyone has seen the painting just now. The crux of the painting lies in his final shake. If not for that, it wouldn't even reach reality depiction, needless to say, infused intentions. Ji Mogongzi turned to look at Xianxia and sneered coldly. That's to say, his drawing was completed with the effort of a human and a beast. It was only with a combined effort from them that they were able to match up to my standard, so how can he be worthy of becoming my equal? Everyone was taken aback. It was obvious that having a savage beast in a painting process would only drag one down. To be capable of creating a painting of infused intentions under such circumstances bore testimony to the incredible painting mastery that the other party possessed. This fact couldn't be any clearer on everyone's mind, yet he dared to spout such words. He has truly thrown away his dignity for this competition. But even so, there was a sliver of truth to his words. It was indeed a collaboration between Xianxia and the savage beast. Since this was a competition between Xianxia and Ji Mo, there should just be a single person painting. No one else should be allowed to touch the painting. Even a single word of guidance cannot be accepted. The plum blossoms by the savage beast's footsteps and the tree bark from Xianxia's shake. These two were essential to forming this art piece, and without any of them, it would have been incomplete. Given that this was a collaboration work against an individual, it was indeed an infringement of fairness. Oh, so you mean that? Seeing how shameless the other party was, Xianxia didn't get angry. Instead, he turned to gaze at the person squarely. Simple, I've won this competition. Since you have only managed to reach my standard through a collaboration, your skills can only be said to be inferior to mine. Jimo Gongzi smiled coldly. Painter G, a draw isn't a bad conclusion either. Not expecting the other party to be so lacking in sportsmanship, Vice Guild leader Wu felt rather displeased. Can a savage beast really know how to paint? It is clearly that it was through the sole efforts of the painter that a painting of such quality could be created. Even though it could be said to be a collaboration by a human and a beast, it was due to the incredible painting mastery of this youngster that this painting could reach such a level. We are already giving you leeway to back down by declaring a draw, yet you don't know how to be contented? Vice Guild leader Cheng Feng was also incensed by the other party's actions. Just as he was about to speak up, Xianxia shook his hands casually and looked over with a faint smile. Ji Gong's words make sense. Since you believe that this is a collaboration between me and the savage beast, we'll take it as that. However, since you don't consider this a draw, I would like to ask, under what kind of circumstances will you be willing to admit defeat? Want me to admit defeat? Jimo Gongzi sneered coldly. I am a fair person, so I will not use your collaboration as a reason to proclaim my victory. If your painting had reached the 4th level of breathtaking verisimilitude, I would have admitted my defeat immediately. However, it's a pity that it isn't. Given that your collaboration has barely reached my level, how can I consider this a draw? Your words are logical, I can't find any words to refute them. Xianxia didn't seem to be vexed by the other party's words. Instead, he shook his head with a smile. Since you've nothing to say, just admit defeat. Jimo Gong's eyes shone brightly. Just as he was about to continue speaking, the edges of the lips of the youngster before him curled up, and he looked at him pitifully. Are you that certain that this painting has only reached the 3rd level? What do you mean? Jimo Gongzi glanced at the Xian paper on the table. As it was just a moment ago that the painting had been completed, the ink on it had yet to dry. The painting was outstanding, but it was clear that it had only reached the 3rd level. Thus, he sneered coldly, stop putting on an act here. If you wish to admit defeat, hurry up. Even if you were to argue about it the entire day, it's impossible for the painting to reach the 4th level. That might not necessarily be the case. Xianxia calmly turned around and said, Vice Guild leader Wu, I've something which I need to trouble you with. Feel free to speak. Vice Guild leader Wu nodded. May I know if there are any fire torches in the guild? May I borrow one? Xianxia asked. The Painter Guild used night illumination pearls as the source of light for its interiors. Its radiance was gentle as bright as the morning sky. But despite the brightness, it didn't provide any warmth. Furthermore, it was in the middle of the autumn, and the room was slightly cold. As everyone present was a cultivator, they didn't pay the matter any heed. There is. Vice Guild leader Wu glanced at the youngster doubtfully for a moment before waving his hands. An apprentice stepped out from the room, and soon returned with a fire torch in his hands. Bring it to the painting to warm it. Instead of receiving the fire torch, Xianxia instructed the apprentice. Yes. The apprentice glanced at Vice Guild leader Wu, and upon seeing him nod, walked to the winter plum blossoms painting. Under the heat of the fire, the wet ink began to coagulate. Hong long. Under the warmth of the torch, a change occurred in the ink, inducing a vastly different sensation in the painting from before. A slight trace of white appeared in the 4 corners of the inky black flower buds, as though the flower was beginning to bloom. For a moment, the crowd could smell the aroma of plum blossoms in the air. Woo woo woo. A few butterflies flew into the room from nowhere and landed on the painting, as if they were attracted by the aroma of flowers, then lingering on the surface for an extremely long time. Is this breathtaking verisimilitude? How is this possible? Everyone's body shuddered. They felt that they were about to go insane. Before the ink dried, it was clearly only at the level of infused intentions. Yet, the moment it dried, it became a 4th level painting. How did this situation happen? However, if the painting hadn't reached the level of breathtaking verisimilitude, How could those butterflies be attracted to it? And how could they catch the faint aroma of plum blossoms in the air? Deng 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 deng. Ji Mo Gongzi staggered backward with a pale face. He had just claimed that he would admit defeat if the other party's painting reached the 4th level, and never in his dreams did he expect that it would become one the moment it was dried with a burning torch. Are you for real? He has examined the painting multiple times to ascertain that it was only at infused intentions. How could the heat from a fire torch raise, so easily, the level of the painting? This can't be true. You must have cheated. Shaking his head vehemently, he was unable to believe the sight before him. He howled in a frenzy. Cheated? Zhong Xian shook his head. His gaze swept through the surroundings and finally fell on Vice Guild Leader Cheng Feng. Vice Guild Leader, are you able to tell the reason? I can roughly see a thing or two, but I'm unsure whether my judgment is correct. With a grim face, Vice Guild Leader Cheng Feng spoke of his conjecture. The savage beast which did the painting just now is known as the verdant alacrity beast, and it likes to build its nest in the mud. On the other hand, our ink originates from the black inkstone, and mud carries substances that neutralize the black inkstone. That's why, upon the heat of the fire torch, the color of the ink became lighter. The verdant alacrity beast that was brought here is likely to have just been caught, so there are traces of mud still on its body. The mud is mixed into the ink ground from the black inkstone, and after some heating, the effects were displayed immediately, creating the sight of the flowers blooming, thus inducing a rise in the level of the painting. To be able to do this requires a profound understanding of beast taming, as well as the properties of the various materials. At this point, Vice Guild Leader Cheng Feng stared at Zhong Xian with eyes filled with disbelief. The sight before seemed magical. A painting of the 3rd level was brought up by an entire level just using the heat from a torch. However, it was actually a fusion of numerous knowledge to create that exact outcome. In fact, even without the heat of the torch, this painting would automatically rise to the level of breathtaking verisimilitude in a day's time. And to do this, one has to have a deep understanding of beast taming, the properties of the substances involved, and numerous other matters. Everything must be fully within grasp, and this youngster who hasn't even reached 20 yet has managed to achieve this. The heck? Is it the world that's mad, or have I gone mad? Thank you for listening to PandaAudioBooks. If you love what you hear and want to support my work, check out the PayPal link in the description. Every bit helps. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell to stay updated with all our latest audiobook chapters. We'll see you in the next one.